All right, welcome everyone. We will call to order our Committee of the Whole meeting, and we'll start by acknowledging and recognizing that we work, live, and play in the city of Port Alberni, which is situated on the unceded territories of the Sechot and Hupachesit First Nations. We do have an agenda in front of us. Are there any late items from committee members? Seeing none, any late items from our corporate officer?
No late items. Thank you.
Great, then would somebody like to move approval of our agenda? Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. On to adoption of minutes. We have minutes from the Committee of the Whole meeting held at 6 p.m. on February 17th, 2026 as presented. Moved to adopt by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Seeing no comments on the minutes, all in favor? Carried, none opposed, and on to public input period. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the committee. Up to 6 speakers for up to 5 minutes each can be accommodated, and for anyone participating online, use the raise your hand feature. And I should just note that we do have Councillor Debbie Haggard participating online as well, just for members of the public's awareness. Okay, I'll go to the back first. Come on forward.
Hello. Thank you for having us tonight. My name is Sherilyn Bray, and I am here tonight on behalf of the Community Action Team. I am the co-chair, and I am with Nina Kazenko, who is the other co-chair.
Hi, thanks for having us. First of all, I wanted to say that we're speaking about that new development that you're proposed for Second Avenue. And after spending some time with Councillor Haggard for a brief period in one afternoon, she suggested that I come and speak. So this is why I'm here. So first of all, Port Alberni Community Action Team does support housing. We truly believe that housing is the first step for anyone for wellness. People cannot get better without a safe place to live, and housing truly does save lives. Housing alone, unfortunately, is not enough for people who are struggling with addiction, trauma, and mental health challenges. And if the Second Avenue project is going to work, we're hoping that it's going to be more than just a building. We have some ideas. Success for a building is success for people. And in order to help people become successful, that would mean fewer overdoses, fewer emergency calls, people connecting to treatment and out, tenants that become more stable, neighborhoods that feel safer, and people moving forward with their lives. To make that happen, some things are pretty important. First, whichever agency it is chosen, that agency running the building would hopefully have real experience working with people with complex needs. Second, there would hopefully be strong supports inside the building, not just minimal staffing. If supportive housing is underfunded or understaffed, it can actually increase the pressure put on the police in emergency situations instead of reducing it. Third, there needs to be a clearer path to wellness. That means better case management, mental health support, access to OAT, harm reduction, and helping people get into detox if relapse occurs or when someone is ready, and life skills support. We believe it would also be beneficial to include a work program. People do better when they have a sense of purpose. Um, I think just housing isn't the answer. I think housing with a sense of purpose has a better outcome. A structured work program. There's many treatment centers in the Lower Mainland that have a staff-run facility where they sit at the desk and they decide who's going to do what. But the programs inside the center are peer-led and run by people in the facility that are living there. Janitorial work, kitchen duties, different things, the list goes on. So there are some agencies in our community already that have transitional work employment, such as the Clean Team. INEO offers some things like just to incorporate some of those to a higher degree where people were actually functioning as people that feel well in our community. And it also helps build job skills and get them onto their next level of where they want to be in life. And they get to earn money. You know, There's nothing better than getting your own paycheck that's real. There's a big sense of pride to that. And I really believe that that would be a helpful piece to this housing unit. Housing should be a bridge to something better, not just a place to stay. When I'm in my home, I treat it with love, care, and respect. And when I plant my garden and I see it grow, I want to take care of it a little more, right? We also know that there are concerns in the neighborhood, and those concerns are real. The best way to address them is through good planning and accountability. We would encourage clear goals for success, regular public updates, a contact person for the neighborhood concerns, and ongoing collaboration with community partners, such as like us, Sherilyn and I standing here. We want this project to succeed. We truly do. We want to reduce harm, support recovery, and strengthen our community as a whole. If this is done right, it could probably really work and be something really good for our community. We do have enough wet housing, but people have nowhere to transition to, or people have nowhere to come from treatment and come back to Port Alberni and get into a rentals they can't afford. They need a clean, safe environment to live. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
that
move
all?
forward. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Nina.
Hi, my name is, hi, Madam Mayor, Council. My name's Roseanne Dorn. I'm heading the Right Place, Right Plan. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak today. I want to start by saying something very clearly. This is about the Second Avenue development. I am one of the speakers for Right Place, Right Plan, and we started this in January of 2026 after the rezoning application hearing for the Second Avenue Support Housing Project. Many local residents and business owners first learned of this project at that time. Our group supports the city's efforts to expand supportive housing and provide safe, stable options for people experiencing homelessness. Our focus is to ensure that the Second Avenue project succeeds for both future residents and the surrounding neighborhood. This project is in a mixed, used, and long-established home, small business, cultural assets, and tourism activity. Because of this unique context, it's critical that operational model, staffing levels, and support services are carefully matched to the location. We are asking the city and BC Housing to consider a drier, high barrier model as it aligns more closely with the surrounding land uses and reduces operational risks. If the project proceeds as wet housing, we request clarity on whether alternative locations were evaluated. I know we spoke about this before, but I'm just trying to make it clearer to the community. They seem to have a different aspect of, or a different knowledge of what we are about. So I just had to go over that one more time. There were supposed to be notices delivered to all nearby residences and businesses, but according to the residences and businesses, that did not happen. Not in the form it was supposed to, or they didn't receive them. We have spoken to many in the area and none have confirmed receiving any notice from BC Housing or the city. Maybe this helps why only 44 people attended the meeting from BC Housing at Echo Center. I want to publicly correct a mistake impression. We are not standing against public housing. That is not true. In fact, we are taking a stand to protect the homeless and others who need effective, safe, local housing. What we are asking for is the right kind of housing in the right place with the right supports. So it truly helps people rebuild their lives. I'm here to provide an update on the research our group has been conducting regarding the proposed low barrier wet housing unit on 2nd Avenue. We have met with the management team that was selected to operate the facility, Lookout Housing and Health Society. The CEO met with us here in town and we had a face-to-face meeting, and he told us there will be 17 members hired with 2 management and 15 on full-time rotation. 2 management, 2 people on site 24 hours a day. Port Alberni has none of these trained workers available locally, and they want to train the people that they hire. They need experienced staff in similar projects, cities that hired inexperienced staff in similar projects experienced serious problems. Staff will primarily provide assistance only at the tenant's request. Counseling and other supports would be contracted out rather than provided on site. I don't know if you know all this, but this was coming right from the management's mouth. Support workers such as mental health and addiction counselors in Port Alberni are at capacity. So additional support would likely have to come from outside the community. The building will have a staffed kitchen, but it does not teach daily life skills. The lower barrier model consists entirely of studio suites, so no units for couples or families with children. Staff must acknowledge tenant privacy and cannot enter apartments if doors are not answered. This is a Rental Tenancy Act facility, so staff must conform to all Rental Tenancy Act rules and regulations. The CEO encouraged the public to volunteer and participate, introducing helping tenants clean the surrounding area. The facility permits companionship, animals, and the use of substances. The organization would not necessarily be responsible for mess unless they can verify it came from the tenants. Recent examples for caution. We were talking to somebody from WeVote. I'm sure you're familiar with WeVote. They're the ones that helped Surrey, Burnaby, and now New Westminster with their wet housing proposals. Surrey Council blocked supportive complex care housing due to operational risks. Victoria, provider calling for weapon bans legislation addressing safety concerns in supportive housing. Lookout manages 2 tiny home villages, one in Courtney and one in Campbell River, and another tiny home in Duncan. They operate one facility in Courtney that is similar to the project we have proposed for here on 2nd Avenue. It's called The Junction. It's a 44-unit building similar to the one proposed here. In January and February, the Junction received 119 combined RCMP and ambulance visits. I also visited a BC Housing Support Facility on Charlotte Street in Victoria, supported by the First Nations
Roseanne, I'm just
community.
going to interrupt for a moment. Your time is up. So if you're
Hey,
almost
it's very
finished,
short.
if you want to finish up, that's fine. Just you are at time.
We also held a Zoom meeting with WeVote. They, like us, understanding that housing for the homeless is necessary. I'll skip some of this, but I will email it to you. Before approving wet housing under BC directives, Port Alberni has the opportunity to do better. Other cities' experience show wet housing projects are failing, resulting in weapon, drugs, and public safety impacts. We are not saying no housing, and we are not saying yes to, and we are saying yes to the right plan in the right place with the right supports. Right means dry, high barrier model, trained staff, adequate counseling, and addiction support. Privacy, respected, safety, and stability prioritized. Port Alberni can build a model that works for the vulnerable, the neighborhood, and our community's future. Let's make that difference together. And I hope we can do that. We want to work with you. We've had no response from any of you for the emails that Anna Perry has sent to you. We've had no contact from you. We've had no.
Thank you.
We do
Your
not
time
know
is
where
up.
you're standing, and we have.
Thank you, Roseanne. Your time is up. Yeah. Thank you. We have formally heard from your group, and we did take the input of your group into consideration. And we did also direct staff to send that message back to you as well. But you know that you did provide formal input because you had a meeting with our staff and you were told that that would be brought to us. Absolutely. I just want to note that I also met with the CEO of Lookout, and I just want to note that much of what you've shared today is not aligned with what I was told. So I'm sorry, I'm not trying to have a back and forth here. I just want to state that I have invited the CEO of Lookout to come to council to present publicly so that the public can get the information firsthand. Thank you. Would other members of the public like to come forward? Yes. Oh, and sorry, just before I go to you, I'm going to go to Councillor Patola for a moment.
Can do.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So earlier today, I was accused of using legal trickery in writing various types of policies and procedures. And so I want to avoid that legal trickery in my comments. Please sit down. I'm going to be more than a minute. More than a minute.
Moment approved.
Yeah. And in speaking with other individuals today in the community about the Second Avenue development, I had to explain to them the difference of definitions that are used. And that's what I think I may be accused of legal trickery in using different definitions. But in my experience, the term dry housing is not a term that applies in this circumstance. It is a term, but it is irrelevant to the proposed Second Avenue development. Also, the terms high barrier and low barrier are irrelevant. People can use those terms in their submissions. They certainly do not lack any context in my consideration of their submissions. And this is why. Because a number of submissions are pointed towards what we're not doing and not pointed towards what we are doing.
I'm sorry, I have to ask the member of the audience who keeps speaking out. Thank you. We can't have people speaking out while members of council are speaking. If we do, we have to recess the meeting. And if we can't have order, then unfortunately we have to terminate the meeting and ask everyone to come back at another time. I want to give members of the public who, Mr. Anderson,
Point of order.
no, Mr. Anderson, I'm sorry.
It is a point of order.
I'm sorry, I only have to listen to a point of order from members of council. So Mr. Anderson, please sit down. Thank you. And we are going to let members of the public speak. We have one coming up next, and we always let as many members of the public speak who want to during public input period. So we certainly will get to that. Go ahead, Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Now that I've lost my place, I'm not going to start over again. I agree wholeheartedly with comments from Ms. Bray and Ms. Kazenko. There are a number of observations in there that are quite true. But again, we need to look at what we are doing, not what we're not doing. What we are doing, I refer to a letter that I provided to many of the opponents or concerned individuals in this matter. To be crystal clear, this is my personal response, not that of other members of council. My understanding of this proposed development on 2nd Avenue is A, housing. First and foremost, the proposed development will provide an additional 55 units of housing to Port Alberni. This is not a treatment center. The housing needs report from Port Alberni indicates that we need a lot more than 55 units. Some of that housing will be provided through private sector development. We have a number of applications to the city for new developments in Port Alberni. We are grateful that some of this need is being provided through public sector housing, such as BC Housing, and many of the other societies that have built in Port Alberni. The question is, how will 55 units affect the entire housing needs? Likely, it will provide access to housing because it's new housing for individuals that are currently underserved, either by offering housing that is financially appropriate for people who are currently housed in improper circumstances, or by offering housing to people that have not been able to secure any permanent home. Potentially 55 units that are financially reasonable may affect the market rates of similar low-cost housing, resulting in those becoming more financially reasonable as well. B, this housing is permanent. It is designed to provide permanent housing. This is not an overnight or temporary shelter. This is not a traditional housing program. This is not a rehabilitation program run under the health auspices. This is housing provided by BC Housing. It's long-term, final stage in the sense that it is where you're going to live for the rest of your life. The theory of transitional housing has strengths and weaknesses. That's the theory that people first have to go to rehab, then have to go to temporary housing, then have to go to transitional housing, kind of like a university student moving through their residences and self-let places. But the tendency for this development will be as it is for any other rental apartment building. Once someone moves in, they will be afforded the same protections as any other renter pursuant to the Residential Tenancy Act, and any additional rules and codes of behavior that are determined in accordance with the Act by the service provider. There will be an ability for the landlord to terminate the tenancy. This is not a stop on a never-ending shuffle of social housing. This is an opportunity for individuals to come home. This will be supportive housing. It is intended to be accompanied by programs that support the residents in their independent life. Some individuals possess different skill levels and processes for interacting with the community. For example, nutrition is a skill that is lacking in various populations. A good example, and I return to my university student friends, is university students living in residence. Most, if not all of these students take advantage of a meal plan where they receive prepared meals without having to take on the responsibilities of shopping, storage, preparation, and budgeting. Another example is people who are financially challenged and may be prevented from obtaining sufficient nutrition. Medical care, employment, education, and socialization are some of the many other areas where support enables people to participate more actively, and I'll say equally, in their community. Now, what this is not supervised housing. There will be conditions of tenancy that have yet to be determined. There will be issues of security that will be addressed, but tenants will have the right to peaceful enjoyment of their own home without intrusion, just like everyone that is watching me right now. I'm not going to come to your house and tell you you can't have a glass of wine with dinner. This is not a warehouse. It is intended as a place where people are part of a community. It is not a warehouse where people are stored away from the rest of the world, out of sight, out of mind, because their current life is inconvenient.
Councillor Patola, are you almost finished?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is not a jail. Tenants will be free to live their lives. Their personal circumstances are not an offense to society, and they will not have their liberties and rights infringed on. While there may be a level of security, it will likely be directed to the benefit of the tenants. It will not be surveillance or monitoring. Think more interactive community rather than big brother oversight. One more point. Finally, this is not a treatment facility. A treatment facility can require participation, and operators can terminate the tenancy if there is a failure to comply with conditions. Therapeutic services take place in specialized environments. The zoning currently approved for this development does not permit the provision of therapeutic services such as detox or recovery. I hope that clarifies some issues, although I'm sure it may raise other questions that I'd be quite happy to engage on at your convenience.
Thank you, Councillor Patola. And I'll go to the, oh, sorry.
Madam Mayor,
Councillor
sorry, I
Manning.
apologize. I'd like to bring the point of order at this point. I would love to hear what Councilor Patola says, so I purposefully waited for the end of his speech. It is not our time to speak. It's public input period. And by doing that in the middle of public input period, we may discourage other people who haven't spoken yet to either change what they have to say or speak in general. May I suggest to councillors and mayor in the future is we find a place in this meeting other than public input period so councillors can have their say. I just think that we may have figuratively urinated all over this. That's what I think. So I just want the public to have their say. And if, especially if a councillor has a pre-made speech, I think we knew we can add that in the agenda when we adopt the agenda for a different spot. So thank you very much. And I appreciate the words and I appreciate Councillor Patola.
Thank you. I will make sure that we don't, that any comments from members of council during this time do not reduce the amount of time that we have for comments from members of the public. Appreciate that comment as well as the comments by Councillor Patola. I think that this is a difficult topic that, you know, has had a lot of public comment, and it is challenging when comments are made and councillors may feel that their comments are being misrepresented. So I do want to make sure that we let members of council speak if there is a reason for it. That said, you're absolutely right. This time is predominantly intended to be public input. So I appreciate that, especially if it's a longer comment, then we can always, if it's a longer comment, Councillor Patola, then we can always add that to the agenda even right after public input period. Yeah, thank you. And now I will go to the member of the public. Thank you for waiting.
Thank you, Sam Atwell, local resident. I feel my inference is that I now get 10 minutes instead of the prescribed 5. So thank you so much for clarifying how much extra time I get. No, I here to speak about the recent decision on the TUP for the Redford Motel and the RV park. I did have some members of the community reach out about the implications of what this is. I will say I'm very appreciative of the councillors that I was able to reach out and have conversations with about where this is at, and just hoping that there's some sort of reasonable conclusion that we can come to. We keep hearing that there's a higher need for diversified housing options. I know that this is an RV park and fits within whatever the mandate for the zoning is. This does provide like a change of opportunity for those people who are living in those units to have to find alternative housing locations, creating a stressor for people who are already kind of in a situation we're looking at people being forced into parking other locations. They're not going to upward mobility in finding other places to live. They're moving their current house to wherever they can find a space, be it backyards, parks, parking lots. We don't want to make people come into a situation that makes their lives more difficult. The intent is always to try and find a reasonable solution to make sure people are safe and secure in the way they are able to live. With that, we're looking at trying to find a way to work together that works within what the city's expectations and wants are, along with the property owner, but at the same time focus on reducing the implication of displacement for those residents. I understand that the city has a want, the property owner is going to have a want, but the focus should be on those 12 residents, on what their future and situation is going to look like, and minimizing that as much as possible. A lot of these things aren't by choice, it's by the nature of where things are at, and so we're wanting that. I think we are able to find a way to build expectations that can be met. If that's going to be a zoning change that's going to happen, realistically, a year to 2 years, that doesn't provide a lot of surety for those residents. So I think that if there is a want or expectation from the city side on what that is going to be, working together with the landowner is going to be paramount. But minimizing what that impact is going to be on those folks. Saying that they have 6 months to find another place to live doesn't provide a lot of surety. It does bring up a lot of issues beyond that of trying to find a suitable location, even if that's a year, even if that's 2 years. Having a handshake agreement to say, hey, there's time for you to transition. If that transition isn't going to work out, that's kind of what we're kind of talking about there. I think that's kind of where that is. You know, we want. Yeah, had the opportunity to walk that RV park before as well, and I appreciate Councilor Patola also taking the time to walk and talk to all the residents who are there. This is something that could be standard on what RV parks will look like and how clean and secure it is, and providing that safety for those community members versus the example of what not to do. So I'm hoping there's some middle ground there to at least find a way to work together with the city and those landowners, so we don't have that impact to those folks who had at this point nothing to do now except try to find another place to live within 6 months, which I don't think is the right path. So I hope that there is a way for council to come back, look at what those options are, if it's a zoning change, what that realistically is going to look like for those residents, and have some sort of surety for them of what the next stages and steps for them are going to look like for the next year to 2 years, if that's what the plan is going to take. Give them some opportunity to at least not feel like they're getting kicked to the curb. So that's my piece. Thank you. I know it was under 10 minutes. I promised the 10, but here we are. So yes, next time I will take you up on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Are there other members of the public? Yeah, a hand in the back.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. My name is Kathy Roosen. My husband and I live at 5062 Angus Street. I'm really feeling very nervous, so you know. My husband has owned the building for close to 40 years. It was his retirement dream. We do not support the low barrier, I'm going to call it low barrier because that's what I know, facility on 2nd Avenue. Since the Port Pub was demolished, we, along with our neighbors, have noticed something important. There's been less disorder on the street, less property damage, fewer people wandering into yards. But what you don't know, there is something happening nearby that most people do not see. Across the alley from our building on the corner of 2nd and Angus, there's another building. The upstairs units are being rented to ever-changing number of people. Many appear to be the same individuals who were previously at the Port Pub. Their entrance is located in the alley. Most people never see them coming and going at all hours of night and day. We regularly witness open drug use in the L-shaped alcoves of that building. We also believe drugs are being sold there. Our bedroom window faces the entrance. We are repeatedly woken up during the night. People pound and kick on the door. They gather there and openly use drugs. The worst time is between midnight and 5, so we get waken up 3 or 4 times. We have called the police many times. They do respond, but usually the individual has already gone back inside or left before the officers have arrived. We have contacted bylaw repeatedly. We have emailed them, visited their office on 3rd, filled out disturbance forms. At one point, we were told, well, it comes with territory. We were also told the owner of the building could rent to whoever he wants. Garbage used to pile up everywhere at that location. It collects in the alcoves along the side of the building where I heard people would just go on their balcony and throw garbage over. And we reported that to bylaw as well. The people living there seem to completely blind to the mess around them. Now, people are simply forced, people who don't live there actually force the door open with knives, bank cards, go inside. Many of them stay for hours. Some of them come out 10 minutes later, all messed up. We are told there are only supposed to be 3 people living there. We phoned the building owner, woke him up a few times, told him, and nothing ever happened. But we see many more people coming and going. Most of them are new faces. We have commercial tenants at street level. Their clients include families and small children. At the entrance where the open drug use occurs is only 10 feet from their door. Naturally, they've expressed concerns. They've told us that if they'd known about the proposal of the Second Avenue project before moving in, they could never have signed the lease. The lease is coming for renewal soon. At this point, move forward, we are concerned we will lose a tenant and it'll be likely difficult to attract a new one. We are in support of helping vulnerable people. We are totally understand, but we believe it must be done in a way that supports recovery and a safe community. A dry supportive housing, yes. A wet, low barrier facility, no. Thank you for listening. All I got to say.
Thank you, Kathy. Thanks for your comments. Randy.
Excuse me. Good evening, Randy Fraser, City of Port Alberni resident. Shortly after the previous CAO, Mr. Fox, arrived, he began to push for the development of master plans. We were told we needed master plans, that's what the city needed to guide us. And because at that time, a lot of things weren't getting done. So we ended up, my calculation, I may be a little off, I think we spent over $1.5 million to develop these master plans. But as they were being developed, we kept hearing that those plans are what we need to really guide us. So we still don't have them, but we're moving ahead with 2 playgrounds getting equipment. When the previous director of Parks and Rec kept stalling, saying we needed to wait till the master plans. We're getting maybe into the campground business, a new service, and they're also taking over a marina and a boat launch, all ahead of our master plans, right? So to get into the marina business, council back in January amended the financial plan to allocate $1 million to help repay the Port Authority for the assets. And last month at the last committee of the whole meeting, this committee is voted to amend the financial plan for an internal borrowing of $500,000 for transition and modernizing of Plutosi. So that's another 1.5 million before we even launch. So my concern really is over the use of reserve funds. Over the past 2 administrations, the wants of council have taken priority over really the needs of the community, all at the expense of reserve funds. Reserve funds were set up many years ago for specific reasons and use. Unfortunately, it's been way too easy to dip into these funds when we want something, but we really don't have the money to pay for it. And I'm just going to use Argyle Street, the 1st to 3rd, just as a quick example. Is that street really in that bad a shape? Is it falling apart? Is the infrastructure have issues? How many water main breaks have been on there? Have we had sewer issues? The street is pretty much the same condition it has been forever. But can we afford the $6 million or so for this project? And what will it do to the reserve funds? So this year, the priority, there's a major priority out of the sewer fund for $6 million to replace the force main on Josephine Street, which is the appropriate use for the fund, $6 million, right? But we're also going to take $2 million out of the sewer fund to help fund this project on Argyle Street, which is going to leave the sewer reserve fund in the negative. And it's going to take a number of years to start to build that back up. And so that leaves us no funding for emergencies that may happen in the sewer system at all, which then means you have to either borrow, which means other issues. So we're using also water reserve fund for the Franklin River water main replacement. And that's over a 4-phase period, if I understand it. The first phase is this year for just over $4 million. Those are the budget numbers. I don't know what the tenders have come in at. So I'm just guessing off what you've said. But we're also going to take $2 million out of that water reserve fund for Argyle Street, which then begins to dip the water reserve fund so low that it's going to take another 3 years before we have enough funds to do the second phase of that water main. And basically, it's going to take almost 10 years at this rate to replace that water main. Unfortunately, it's the citizens who bears the cost of some of the bad financial decisions, rather. And that's because of tax increases in order to cover the losses that we have in the reserve funds, increase utility bills to make up the utility funds that we've lost. And it's all increased borrowing costs. So really, it's not really that the city, I don't think, has a revenue problem. I think it really has a spending problem. And we're spending way too much money on things that we shouldn't be. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Not very often do we get people complaining we're doing too much infrastructure renewal, but appreciate your comments. Mr. Anderson.
Neil Anderson, I just want to go back to what my point of order was, and I just want to clarify something. And that's not a bad thing because it'll come up again. And I know our corporate officer is well informed about stuff like this, and I respect her opinions, but I also have a experience in this area too. Maybe there's different ways of doing it. This is the public input period, and I thank the councillor who spoke up and said, yes, didn't believe it's right. When we had this division between council meetings, and we eliminated the opportunity for the public to speak on issues, it limited how the public interacted with their council in drastic ways. Many people have talked about it. Nothing has changed since that code of ethics came up, and it should have been changed ages ago. So the KOW, the COW meeting, was the opportunity. That was a trade-off. That's the opportunity for the public to get up and speak their minds, and it's their meeting. That wasn't our meeting. And I appreciate what the councillor was stating, but he had an opportunity at the end of this meeting, the last part, to say everything he had to say there. And I was looking forward to that because I actually congratulate him on his draft copy before the meeting started. So if we don't have an opportunity to call council out when they're breaking their own rules, or then what rights do we have? The public should have a right to stand up and say, City Council is not abiding by their own rules. Come up, tap the mic and say, point of order, and be recognized. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
I don't need a debate.
I was going to get our corporate officer to respond to clarify. Thank you. That the point of order is only for members of council. Go ahead, Sarah.
And I'd also like to know who came up with that decision. I've also.
It is council's procedure bylaw, but I'm actually, Mr. Anderson, I'm going to ask our corporate officer to respond.
Fine. Fair enough.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, that's correct. Council conducts meetings under their council procedures bylaw, of which council directs what they'd like to see within that. There are legislative requirements that council must follow, but by and large, they are able to set out their meeting procedures as they wish within that bylaw.
And additionally, Mr. Anderson, there is nothing within our council procedures bylaw that prohibits a member of council from speaking during public input period. So council is not breaking our own rules. I do think it was a fair point that was made. And the intent is that this is, Mr. Anderson, I have to ask you to not speak when I'm speaking.
You've said that before. No.
I've shut your mic off now because I am speaking and I need you to not speak at the same time. It is, there's nothing that prohibits members of council from speaking. However, I appreciate the comment that was made by Councillor Mealy. And as I said, I'm making sure that Councillor Patola making comments during public input period today does not and will not reduce the amount of time and members of the public that we get to hear from. Thank you.
Invitation that I'm getting from the corporate officer is this was a policy set by council. I've taken, I used to take courses, and I've taken courses in parliamentary procedure, and this is the wildest committee of a whole meetings that I've ever heard of.
Thank you. It is council's procedures bylaw.
where you exclude the public from correcting the council from behavior.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Section 41 of the council proceedings bylaw reads sub 6, section 41, public input period. Sub 6 reads, council or committee member may ask or answer questions of a member of the public who is addressing the committee, but must not enter into debate. Thank you. So that specifically not only doesn't deny council the ability of reply, but specifically grants the ability of reply. And the may is within the power of those sitting at the chair, which you exercise.
And we've gone through that dozens of times. I've even got an email that came down from you that states that on public input period, this was initially when it started, that the member of the public could get up and talk about any issue that they felt. They don't have to be right. I mean,
That is absolutely still the case. but
you're
you-
interrupting me, Madam.
Mr. Anderson, that
Yeah.
you have had your time. Mr. Anderson, that is still the case. A member of
I've
the
got
public
5
can
minutes.
absolutely get up during public input period and speak to whatever issue they want. However, you can't rise from your chair in the middle of a member of council speaking and interrupt. So that's what you're not permitted to do. And that's what I disallowed you from doing today. I just have to say, that's the end of the discussion we're going to have on this tonight. If you don't sit down, we'll take a recess and we'll decide if we can come back. I'd like to be able to continue this meeting tonight. Yeah, your microphone is off. Yes, I have your microphone off. Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion to take a 15-minute recess and we will come back. Thank you. Councillor Solda.
Madam Mayor, the general public out in YouTube land or wherever we're out in Port Alberni here does not hear. They don't have volume. And so maybe we could, I don't know if it would help to have a motion to recess so we can, our tech people can get it all fixed.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Dame. On the motion, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
I've had three texts from people.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to reconvene? Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Mealy. On the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And we will go to members of the public again, but we're going to, if council's okay with it, which I think that they are, we're going to welcome up our delegation first because she is on a timeline. So come on forward. And this is Joanne from Broombusters.
And my PowerPoint is available, I hope. Okay, so good evening, Mayor Minions and board members. I'm Joanne Sales, Executive Director of Broombusters Invasive Plant Society, and it was on, okay. I'm also here with the two local organizers, Wendy Freeberg and Sue Thomas. Thank you for having us here tonight. Okay, so this year is Broombusters' 20th anniversary, and we want to thank Port Alberni for the support of Broombusters for many years. There's so many bad things we can say about Scotch broom. It spreads rapidly and densely. It's the greatest threat to biodiversity in BC. It prevents forest regrowth. It's toxic to grazing animals. It takes over anywhere in the sun, negatively impacts food security, forestry, tourism, our safety and our health. But all the bad things I could say about Scotch broom right now, highly flammable, is the worst. Unfortunately, all the people in the Alberni Valley, oh, here we go, know more about that. Okay, so yeah, Scotch broom is a volatile flash fuel. It'll increase a wildfire's fuel load, escalate fire's intensity, compromise fire situations, and make fires more difficult to fight. Why is it so hazardous? It's the high oil content. It's an easy ignition source. Massive amounts of dry vegetation increase the fuel load. Grows 9 feet tall. It's a ladder fuel. Dense, widespread thickets contribute to fuel continuity, and it grows everywhere, contributing to the likelihood of urban interface fires. So broom on the power lines, I just quickly want to talk about this because we have to stay aware of the fact that most of Vancouver Island is connected by power lines that are largely covered with flammable broom. In 2023, AVICC and UBCM passed the resolution Control of Scotch Broom, calling for control and fire breaks on long stretches of broom. So it looks like these are pretty little yellow flowers, but if you look at the picture to the right, you see that they're very, very large and highly flammable. So this year we've just been sharing pictures of how the power lines go through different municipalities. So that's just a picture of where the power lines are in Port Alberni, and where there are power lines, there is broom. So Scotch broom is a global problem. Santa Rosa and surrounding California's, surrounding counties in California are taking broom very seriously. The Tubbs Fire near Santa Rosa, California, during a span of more than 23 days in October 2017, this wildfire consumed 36,807 acres, destroyed 5,643 homes and buildings, and resulted in the loss of 22 lives. I want to tell a little bit of a story from my now son-in-law was in that fire. Actually, I don't want you to see that yet. Okay, he was in that fire, and a fireman came to his door, knocked on his door at midnight and said, "Get out, you have minutes." So he left in his pajamas and the house burned to ashes. When Rob first came to Vancouver Island, it was May, and he saw what Scotch broom was. And this is what he said. "That Scotch broom, that was the plant that covered the fields where I lived in Santa Rosa. I didn't know it was flammable. No wonder it burned so quickly." So Santa Rosa wants to rebuild and also prevent another catastrophic wildfire. So this is where I became interested in the story and where it ties in with what's going on here. Their top priority is eliminate Scotch broom. This ordinance explicitly names Scotch broom as non-native hazardous vegetation that must be removed if it's within 30 feet of a public right-of-way, 100 feet of a structure, or 30 feet of a property line. And Sonoma County and surrounding counties have similar ordinances. These people have been through wildfire hell, so we fortunately not in the communities, but this is something to be aware of. But reality check, these ordinances will not pass here now. Timing and budget simply will not allow. But what can we do? Well, let's celebrate our 20th anniversary and continue the work. So this is our 20th anniversary, and since 2006, Broom Buster volunteers have documented cutting 75,000 hours, okay, on Vancouver Island, mostly in the Sunshine Coast. So we want to thank Port Alberni. Port Alberni was active in 2009. This picture was the Hospital Hill in 2009. It was one of the first communities to seriously control Scotch broom. So I just want to show you some pictures. This was one of the sponsored events by the city on May 4th, 2024 at the Echo Center. Port Alberni celebrated many years of broom busting then. We weren't quite sure how many years it was. And then the next year, the similar Battle the Broom event at North Island College. This was highly effective. We want to return to that area again this year. So currently, a core group of Alberni Valley volunteers works tirelessly each spring. You recognize some of these areas, and you see the size of the broom piles. Fortunately, there's less and less within the city. We work with other groups. This was in the Somas Estuary, working with Alberni Nature Club, Ducks Unlimited. The Alberni Deep Spaceport Group did a lot of work in the city, and the Aerosmith Rotary also arranged a cut near the high school in 2014. So more photos of cuts in Port Alberni. and more photos. And Broom Busters are always at CD Saturday as an education event. Alberni Valley Visitor Center. Okay, there was a lot of broom there now. And now when you go by there, there's just no broom. It just doesn't come back. So we want to thank you, Port Alberni, for removing the broom piles that are cut. We thank the city for the sponsored special events. And we'd like to do that again. So specifically, the concerns, or what would really help us the most is if we could have not just one, but 3 events sponsored by the city, which basically means just communicating, you know, this is what we're doing. The city supports it. This is a good thing. The removal of piles everywhere, we're being told we have to remove these piles sooner. Everybody is getting very concerned about fire. Ministry of Transportation is definitely saying we have to have them removed within 2 weeks of when they're cut. And also something that would help a lot is if we had a single person within the staff that we could communicate with so that we could, you know, wouldn't have to be repeating ourselves, but just could talk to the same person. Yes, so and any help, we invite you all to come and cut broom with us. It's actually fun. The mayor and 3 of the council members go out and adopt an area in Qualicum Beach, and it turns into a nice publicity event too. So thank you very much. We appreciate your support. And oh, one more thing, we're going to start earlier this year. The same thing about fire. We're going to hopefully be done by the middle of May. So we'll be starting within a couple weeks. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Joanne. I'm not sure if we need a motion for the city to support 3 events. I know we would support with social media and the pickup. Andrew, maybe from your perspective, do we need a motion for that, or has kind of our prior arrangement with Broom Busters been open enough to support?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe council has previously made motions just as far as some advertisements. So we have, I believe the last 2 years, placed our bi-weekly City Connect ad and then helped to coordinate the organization and promotion of the events on social media as well. So if council wishes to provide a motion, that would be fine. Otherwise, it could be status quo and we could include it annually as part of our process.
Motion then. I think we're happy to support and really appreciate all of the work that you continue to do in our community, organizing volunteers and bringing people out yourselves to really help combat this issue. So thanks so much for coming tonight, Joanne. Are there any other questions or comments from council? Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. And we will just go back just in case there were any other members of the public who wanted to speak tonight. And then we'll go to our next delegation. Okay. Not seeing anyone, we'll go to the Alberni Valley Heritage Commission. Welcome, Pam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, councillors. It's a great honor to come this evening and represent the Heritage Commission, your Heritage Commission, bylaw 4959. And I really want to make sure that I acknowledge Manager of Culture, Sheila Perry. She did a wonderful job of collating all the information that you see in our report this evening. It was a lot of information, an amazing community that came by and visited us at the Fall Fair and shared their concerns and their comments. So there was a lot of material. So thank you very much, Sheila. So the Heritage Commission was established to advise council on protecting historic sites. The city does maintain a community heritage registry to document, recognize, and protect significant local sites like McLean Mill National Historic Site, train station, museum, and so on. I'm going to learn how to make sure I change this properly. Oh, I got it. So on the first slide here, the question we asked our community was, what would you like to see? And in those little squares were a number of suggestions to different things that could happen and are happening in our community. So the Port Alberni Community Heritage Commission conducted a public engagement survey during the Alberta District Ball Fair, September 2025. And the purpose of the survey was to increase awareness of the commission, engage with residents on matters of culture and heritage, and gather input to inform future programming and policy recommendations for the city. So the commission members volunteered. There was a lot of time spent at the Fall Fair. If you were up there, we were in a small corner next to the band, and it was a little loud. We all came away late in the evening rather hoarse and hard time the next day trying to talk. But anyway, we persevered because I was blown away. We had just under 1,000 people stop by to have conversations. So we learned from residents their appreciation for the city who has organized events and at affordable fee for families. And that was one of the comments you'll see later on that was mentioned several times. So here we go, see if we do this right. So some of the key metric was, of course, we had 967, and to me, that's 1,000 people. And the re-arrival of the ministry or mystery artifact was so welcomed. People have missed that challenge. And thank you to Kirsten Smith. She came up with a really difficult one. People were Googling, they were talking, they were visiting, they were coming back with neighbors to figure out what it was. So we ended up with more people because of the artifact. So over 100 responses provided both quantitative and qualitative data, as well as 90 replies to programming matrix and 12 responses for the mapping exercise, which was quite surprising to me that we got all the information plastered up on the map. So we'll try this again. So some of the pieces of information you'll see on the sideboard there with all the posted notes. And if you look closely, there's all kinds of little dots. So those that didn't want to spend time writing out information, they certainly put their favorite dot where they thought the important information was. And again, very amazing to see the time that was taken by residents in the community. They were considerate and they made thoughtful comments. One of the ones at the very top, it says creative experiences for adults. And that came up time and time again, where adults wanted hands-on heritage events where they could participate. And I thought that was truly, truly interesting. And community events, of course, and sharing of Indigenous culture. That was again and again mentioned. People wanted to learn, they wanted to hear, and they wanted the Indigenous participation. So those events that celebrate our history, I think, have been extremely well received by the community. And we need to keep that in the back of our minds as we go through taking these kinds of comments from the community. And it was very clear from those comments about the programming being interactive, inclusive, celebratory, and reflecting diverse cultures and identities. Although there were barriers. So I'm going to turn now over here to the map, which really surprised me. People spent time, that was just a vision of the city streets. But if you look off to the side and up at the top, you'll see their little stickies with arrows pointing to the petroglyphs, to Sprout Lake, to McLean Mill. So people were engaged in place. These are important individual pieces that they knew well of our community that should be shared with as part of our uniqueness. And even this summer, last summer, I had many conversations with people at the train station coming to ride the train, spending time answering questions. Why is it the Orange Bridge? And it's not orange. But we did explain there was a small sign. If you approach the bridge carefully, you can see it. Still confused, but that was the story that people spent 15, 20 minutes just to figure out what I was trying to explain to them. So moving on to the next part, some of the key findings that we had. Ooh, look at that beautiful basket from the museum. So some of the key findings that we realize is many in the community aren't aware of the Heritage Commission. So we have a challenge coming to us as a commission to make sure that people understand who we are, why we do what we do, and the importance of that commission. And there is an opportunity for a greater opportunity to explain that through social media, more events, and recognizing the commission as a valuable entity that does communicate of our heritage in this community. And more key findings. So the majority of the respondents, 90%, considered protecting and promoting Port Alberni's cultural heritage was very important. Only 10% said it was less important. So I think that's a clear message that the heritage that we have preserved is very unique to this area and is telling our story, and people are very interested to learn about it. So respondents also knew about the museum and Maclean Mill, but they didn't know a lot about other heritage societies, other cultural markers. So there was still a lack of awareness. So things that we're going to be doing at the table are going to be finding ways to make sure we share our message to the community. And key findings, there are some barriers that the council should be aware of, that lack of awareness, of course, and some of the cost for some people. Families so appreciate the activities that the city organizes that are very affordable or oftentimes free. They were very welcomed and recognized, and people did mention them. And there is an issue with accessibility and transportation for some families. And of course, families are busy, so time does come into play at times. So to make sure they can get to these events, they do have some issues. So family-oriented cultural events, number one, and very important. People want to know, and time again, the word story. The word story of who we are, the story of those individuals from way back, and also the stories from the nations that make up this community are extremely important to all residents. It was all mentioned several times. So the traditional programming with innovation, inclusive approaches with that highlight Port Alberni's diversity. And I'm very fortunate tonight to have a member of our committee here as well. Penny Cote also wished to make a few comments.
Thank you, Penny Cody. I do have a heritage building in Port Alberni and very proud of it. In the past, the city has actually used the design of our heritage building as a model for city development. So very proud of that fact as well. I volunteered at the Fall Fair and it was hard. It was really hard to talk to everybody. The table was crowded. I'm amazed at how much time people spent at that table, putting on posters, putting on comments, asking stories, wanting to share stories, recognizing that the training that I've received over the last 21 years of being on the Heritage Commission, I've learned all about the authenticity of Port Alberni and how rich our culture and our history is and how much it's worth saving and preserving for our future. The Fall Fair was exceptional for people. They were hungry for stories to find out more about our culture and our heritage. Our committee and Sheila, sorry, Perry does an amazing job bringing it together, because it's a tough job trying to get to the community. And I know that you've all done surveys and whatnot, and to have the participation that we did at Fall Fair with so many other attractions going on at the same time was just outstanding. To gather that information, I hope that you're going to take this and be able to use it going forward for applications and cultural events that we want to put on. Just want a quick story. This October, I went home to where I grew up, where I was born. And I was actually looking for those stories, those historic sites, those historic touch points that I could relate to as a child. And they were there. And when I came home and realized this is what our Heritage Commission does, was so important. And it really tied it all together for me. I thank you for listening to us, and back to Pam.
Thank you very much, Penny. And one little story, I don't know how many of the counselors have had an opportunity to go to the Industrial Heritage Site. When there's a visit from elementary schools, ages 6, 7, and 8, they actually learn how the pioneers washed clothes. They have a very large silver tub, a plunger, buckets of water, and soap. And they comment on how heavy water is to get it in the tub, and also how hard it is, because you have to hit it with sticks and plunge it, and then you got to drain it, wring it, rinse it, and rinse it, and rinse it. They just thought that it would have been much easier to have used a washing machine. But that was an incredible story that the children learned then that had to be done by families. And those families in those days were probably 4 or 5 kids in the household. So quickly, the final couple of pages are some recommendations. Oh, darn it. So look in the middle. Does anybody know what that is? That's the mystery artifact. Anybody had it? Well, I know you know. I'm not going to tell you. We'll give them some clues later. All right. So some of the recommendations from the Heritage Commission are, number one, of course, enhancing public awareness, and we know that, and we're going to work at that. You're likely going to see me again and again and again. We have a lot of things to discuss at the table, only a couple of months of meetings left, but I'm sure we'll have lots of information to share. And to think about the barriers that we identified, accessibility and transportation, developing some partnerships in our community to make sure there's more inclusive programming, and to ensure events are affordable and or free, especially for families, youth, and seniors. Those groups are really struggling to be able to participate in public events. And diversifying the program to have family-friendly cultural events, and again, hands-on learning. People want to be able to put their hands to something and make something or cook something along those lines. And expanding the workshops for adults and youth in particular, and more partnerships with the Indigenous nations that we have in our local area because of their knowledge going back thousands of years. People ask about that, especially visitors to our community that I've encountered at the train. So incorporating some more diverse perspectives as well. And one more brief recommendations, recognizing and interpret cultural places so people know what they are, why they are called a cultural. So that may mean some consideration for signage or some electronic way to share that information with people, especially the petroglyphs. It's hard to see. They can go and see them, but they need to have more history, written history around that. And invest in some cultural infrastructure so that people can display public art and telling the stories of our history through that public art. I got one more, I think. So in conclusion, I am so excited by the survey. I think it was an extremely important exercise and very heartened by the responses from people in the community trying to make an honest help to provide more heritage in our community. And the commission would like to stress how important this data is to the council. And when you deliberate in the future for what you would like plans for heritage and culture, look back and see what we have been able to determine here. And any of us are available for comment or questions. And one small last one that I've seen several times is, if we never look back and learn about where we come from, we will never reach our destination. And this is a very special place, so we need to remember how we got here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pam and Penny, for being here as well. Really appreciate you guys taking the time, not only to be on the Heritage Commission, along with the other members of the commission as well, but spending the weekend at the Fall Fair doing this, because I know those conversations at the Fall Fair are so valuable. I think we often, we do community engagements there as well, and it's often some of just the best input that you get. It's reaching a different part of the community that we often don't hear from as well. So it's extremely valuable, and really appreciate that you guys took the time to do that, and that you found the conversations meaningful as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Councillor Mealy. Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to say that I also worked at the Fall Fair, and I had so much fun that night, and I was very pleasantly surprised at how interested people were in heritage and culture. It was a very busy 2 hours, and people were generally interested, and they really cared about the culture and history of Port Alberni. So I hope you'll invite me back to work again next year. It was so much fun. Thank you.
I think they will, Councillor Haggard. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, you're on the list, Councillor Haggard, for sure. So I also volunteered my time and a little more hours than I thought I was going to, but you just can't get away from those conversations. It's a wonderful, organic conversations with people who are just there for the fair. So it was an amazing time. I hope we do it again, and I know I'll help out if we do. Just want to say I appreciate you, Madam Chair, through you, Madam Chair, to you, Madam Chair, for your time, your leadership on the committee as well, and the direction that we're going forward. And thank you, Penny, of course, for being there, and Ms. Perry as well for all your hard work so far. And we look forward to the upcoming events, such as the 40th anniversary of the Abashiri Twinning Society and Canada Day as well. And I look forward to helping out in both in any capacity I can. So, and I appreciate the time that I had there at the Fall Fair, and appreciate my time on the committee.
Thank you. Any other members or comments from council? Okay, seeing none, that's great. We'll move on to unfinished business, and we'll go to staff reports. And this is the Alberni Valley Heritage Commission 2025 Alberni District Fall Fair Survey and Staff Report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a little backwards. I'm here to present the report for the thing that you just heard. So, yeah, you have in front of you the report. The purpose of my report is to present the committee with the survey findings, which were just presented, and to bring to you a recommendation that our findings be brought back to the commission and to staff and to us, and we use it to help formulate some of our ideas going forward. I would say my own experience with what came out of this, what really resonated with me was a couple of things. The mapping exercise was the most intriguing in the fact that, yes, everybody knew the usual suspects, but there's a lot of things in this town that are not on all of our radar. And when you looked at the map, it was really encouraging to see that there's something in every neighborhood of our town. And so I think that there's ways for us to grow upon that. So that's my report, and I would ask this, entertain any questions should you have them.
Thank you very much. Would somebody like to make the motion? Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move that the Committee of the Whole recommend Council refer the 2025 Alberni District Fall Fair Survey findings to the Alberni Valley Heritage Commission for consideration in future development of cultural and heritage initiatives, policies, and engagement strategies.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Dame. Any comments? Seeing none on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you very much, Sheila. Move on, no correspondence today, so we'll move on to new business. Item number 1 is Parks, Recreation and Culture Summer Pop-Ups.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Today we are here to seek the Council's approval, the committee's recommendations to Council to approve the utilization of the vacant city-owned commercial space at the Harbor Key, Unit 7, formerly the Grove Gallery, as a temporary Parks, Recreation and Culture multi-use hub for the 2026 tourism season. This initiative aims to enhance the visitor experience, provide community engagement opportunities, and prevent a dark storefront in a high-trafficked tourist zone. The Parks, Recreation and Culture Department has developed a proposal, which is attached to it, activate the space as a summer pop-up, which includes satellite Alberni Valley Museum, gift shop, children's drop-in activity zone, feature exhibitions, art exhibitions, and a community engagement hub for the city's branding initiative. The project is designed and intended to be fully cost neutral, funded by revenue from sales, drop-in fees, and activity charges. And we are here to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you. Councillor Mealy and then Councillor Solda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the report. Thank you very much, the Director of Parks, Recreation and Culture. So I am also would not like to see a dark storefront throughout the season down there. However, are we still looking for a full-time tenant? And if somebody comes with a whole bunch of money and says, I want it today, how is that going to work out? And I just want to make sure that we're, and perhaps the staff in general for that question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So yes, of course, we're still advertising. It's still an open space. If we do get a tenant, we would pivot and make sure that tenant would be able to pay the and occupy that space in the long term. So,
Councillor Solda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's a great idea. Pop out, and I think yeah, it works. Yeah. I think it's great. Back in the day, I used to do those kind of things too with Parks and Rec, and I think it's a positive in the right direction, especially with a lot of little kids who are down there, and it's something that gives them something to do, and it also teaches them on top of it. So kudos to your forward thinking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haggard, and then Councillor Dane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is a fantastic idea, and I congratulate staff for thinking outside the box and proposing this. It's a great idea to keep the building space used and lively and attract people down to Harbor Key. Just one suggestion, though, maybe also use as an opportunity to promote the train to people coming in, and also the Heritage Society, their display of artifacts up on 10th Avenue. You know, just have information there that people can come in and get, and hopefully visit those places as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Councillor Dane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I also support the idea. I think it's a great way to make sure that space is filled. I was just wondering if, through the chair, if a bit more information could be provided on how the revenue projections were made.
Yes. Through the CAO, we have the opportunity to offer various programming there through the sales of the gift shop, the activities and registrations for programs that we plan on running down there, and also hope to maximize the revenue potential by being very strategic with our staffing of the space as well.
Thank you, Councillor Solda.
So in your report there, you had little concern about the businesses down there and being in competition in that, but I don't think it's the same thing. I don't think what's down there and what you were looking at having in this shop will be the same. It won't be a competition, right?
Yes.
I'm assuming that.
Yes. Through the CAO, yes, we will be offering a very different items, and we do intend also on communicating with the local shops down there. With the neighboring shops down there to ensure that that they're clear with our goals and intentions, and our hope that it'll increase the time that people spend down at the Key to visit the other establishments there as well.
Councillor Solda.
So thank you. So I think that's great that you're going to make that communication, and if you could do it sooner than later, because then they're not suddenly told like next week, "Hey, we're here," right? So I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to make the motion, but I also agree. Thank you very much for making the communication with the existing tenants, and you're going to be what is existing, the neighbors, really. So I appreciate that. I'll make the motion that Committee of the Whole recommend council authorize the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Department to operate a summer pop-up in Unit 7 at the Alberni Harbor Quay from June 15th to September 12th, 2026, and further the council direct administration to operate in the initiative on a cost-neutral basis, utilizing generated revenues to offset staffing and operational expense.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Solda. Any further questions? Actually, I had a question maybe to better understand what type of children drop-in activities you're planning to do down there. And maybe further to Councillor Dame's question, because I had originally sort of read that and thought it would be drop-in free activities for children. But so intending for them to be drop-in and like drop off your child or with your child, or just an idea of what the plan is.
Thank you for the question, Madam Mayor. Our idea is they will be primarily self-directed, but there will be a small fee attached to them to offset costs. That is one stream of programming, and there will probably be between 4 and 6 types of activities. And that is intended so that people that are coming through town, they're down at Harbor Quay, especially if their children are below the age of 10, you're always looking for something to do. Also, if it is 40 degrees out, they can come in, cool the kids down, and maybe stay at our goal is to keep them at Harbor Quay and in Port Alberni as long as possible. So that's that tactic. We're also, now that we have the okay, we will look at things like we have had demand and people asking for tours down around that area. So we may go and we may see, can we do it once or twice a day and how we work the staffing around that. We also, we use some of the space down at Harbor Quay in both the camps that are organized through the museum, but also through ECHO. So for example, we try to dovetail with the Maritime Heritage Society. The Harborfront Park is a very welcome place for us to take smaller kids during their summer camps. So there's a number of things that we could be doing in terms of programming there. We have not totally fleshed them out because we were waiting to get the thumbs up to see if we could actually do it. But those are some of our initial ideas.
Thank you. Really excited about this. I think it's a great idea. My only comment would be just thinking to the last report that we had that spoke to feedback about cost being a barrier, especially for families. I would just want to really try to make sure that if we are doing drop-in kid activities, that we do really try to keep them affordable for members of our community. But really excited. I think it'll be a fantastic opportunity. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just going to jump on the back of that thought, just merely because I think it's an opportunity for the businesses in town to sponsor kids at this facility during the summertime, much like the Bulldogs do, the Seychelles First Nation, sponsor the youth ticket program. So when you buy a ticket as an adult, you can bring 20 kids if you want. They're all free because that's just, you know, an ability to get them in, have an experience, and keep them busy. So I think, I'm not saying you should go out and find corporate sponsors, but if I find some, I'll send them your way, that's for sure. But I think it's an opportunity to have, you know, this coming long weekend, we have the Kids Activity Zone sponsored by X, and they can have some sponsorship. They pay for the kids, and so then the kids can drop in for free, and then everybody's kind of happy down there. So just an idea. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you very much for the report and for the creative solution to an empty space at the Harbor Quay. On to item number 2, multiplex air handling unit failures.
Thanks again, Mayor and Council. This report is to inform Council of 2 critical HVAC equipment failures at the Alberni Valley Multiplex and to seek approval to reallocate existing planned capital funding in order to replace the failed units without delaying or impacting user programming. The multiplex has recently experienced unexpected failure of 2 critical air handling systems that support essential building operations. The funding for replacement of both units exists in the 2027 portion of the approved financial plan. However, due to the complete failure of both systems and the operational requirement of the multiplex, replacement cannot be deferred. We do have our facilities manager, Rob Cranfeld, here to assist with answering any questions that council may have.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you through you to staff. Appreciate your report again. And as someone who's at the arena, I don't get to experience heat too much. I'm in the penalty box area. So, but I do appreciate this. So I guess the question is, we're looking to take and defer the Zamboni replacement. As a person who's down there a lot, we have had issues with the Zamboni in the last 12 months, let's say. I understand about pushing stuff back. And if staff feels confident that we can get through that, that's kind of what I'm looking for, is just a kind of an assurity that, and of course you can't say that a Zamboni's not going to break down tomorrow, but if we have seen it recently in the past and it's time, I just want to make sure that we have a somewhat of insurance that staff feels that we can go another year without replacing the Zambonis.
Thank you. The question through the chair. Working with our fleet superintendent to do the regular maintenance on our Zamboni as well as our third-party mechanical contractors. We don't see any imminent need, although it is end of its term, and that is why it's on the radar. But we were able to fix the recent problems we had with the Zambonis, and we're not expecting imminent failure, but without a crystal ball, I can't promise that. But the air handling units are done and they're urgent. So thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Any other questions? Councillor Mealy, would you like to read the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, of course. I move that the Committee of the Whole recommend Council amend the City of Port Alberni 2026-2030 Financial Plan Bylaw number 5138 to reflect the following capital plan changes for the Alberni Valley Multiplex. 1, advance funding in the amount of $86,000 from 2027 to 2026 to replace 2 failed air handling units in the upper lobby RTU and Bulldogs dressing room ERV heat pump system. 2, reallocate a portion of the 2026 capital funding previously earmarked for the Zamboni replacement, budgeted at $137,500 to fund the air handling units emergency replacement project. 3, defer the Zamboni replacement to 2027 for reconsideration during future budget deliberations. And 4, direct administration to issue a competitive procurement for the replacement equipment in accordance with procurement policy 3009-1.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Dame. Seeing no additional comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Move on to, thank you very much, item number 3, the 2026 to 2030 financial plan amendment. Andrew.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So today we are seeking a recommendation to council that includes some amendments to the financial plan. One inclusion was the flail attachment and the crane for the sewer trailer and the snowplow. Those are items that were identified by the facilities manager and didn't make it into the draft plan. And so we're trying to make sure that these are added because these are pieces of equipment that are required for operations. Another increase in the IRF was the equipment and vehicles for the replacement of the 2005 Ford F-250 pickup. Now the cost escalation and the allocation for that was not enough. So the manager of fleet is seeking the additional $32,500 for that. Also, we mentioned this before when we provided the quarterly report for the year ending 2025. The time immemorial Victoria Quay project was over budget, and we have to allocate another $60,000 to complete that. These funds will be coming from the surplus that was in the Economic Development Service. Also, we had some good news on the ICBC front as far as grant funding. The intersection safety has been provided grants through ICBC. So the Director of Infrastructure has asked that those funds be brought forward from surplus and allocated for a further project in 2026 that allows further improvements for intersection safety. So we'll just reinvest those funds that we already had planned. And with that, the allocations there are also for the equipment replacement reserve, the operations from the operating funds from the prior year, and then the sewer infrastructure fund for the one piece of sewer equipment. So those are the recommendations that are are here for the committee to consider, along with the identification of the prior recommendations that have already been approved through resolution. We will bring forward the amended bylaw with the amended financial plan in full detail at the regular council meeting if the committee does concur with the recommendations to council.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council? Councillor Mealy.
Just a couple comments, Madam Mayor. So first of all, very happy to see the intersection safety $80,000 coming forward. Thank you very much to Mr. McDonald's staff and for getting the grants out of ICBC, which is great. Also too, just the flail mower for me, it's a little before Councillor Solda's time, but it's one of the first things that I saw 25 years ago was and I didn't even know what a flail mower attachment was. So it's funny to see this 25 years later, but just making sure as long as these are all in need, then I'll have no problem in going forward with these. So.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'll do this from 1 to 9 and in the honor of time here, and then we can discuss at the council meeting when it comes to recommendations. So I'll move that the committee of the whole recommend council amend City of Port Alberni 2026-2030 financial plan bylaw number 5138 as follows. Amend the capital plan to include items 1 to 9.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Patola, I think, for that reason. Seeing no other comments for discussion on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thanks, everyone. And I'll go to Councillor Patola for item number 4.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item number 4, unfortunately, is not a complete representation of the motion that I was intending to bring. Madam Mayor, you'll recall from last meeting that I, at the end of the meeting, made a notice of motion, which is fairly well reflected in the beginning of item 4, although it's very well reflective of my rambling nature and not really having an idea before me at the time. So I endeavored to clarify much of that and submitted 2 motions for council, and they don't quite represent the second paragraph that Committee of the Whole recommend council direct administration to develop a draft occupancy bylaw and rental accommodation bylaw. So what I would like to do, because I wasn't seeking for bylaws, but I was seeking for a report and input from administration so that council can consider a fully apprised situation, I have 2 motions. And the first is that they're not exactly the ones that are written. So they are, in fact, the first motion being that council, the Committee of the Whole recommend council direct administration to review, redraft, and provide a report with guidance on the materials included for a proposed bylaw concerning occupancies bylaw.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Mealy. Do you want to speak to that one first?
I thank you. I will. So, Madam Mayor, the after the discussion with regards to the RV parks, particularly the one on Wood and the one on Redford, it came clear to me that we were drawing a line to separate residences and tenants that are affected by the actions of others, and the more theoretical issue of landlord compliance with bylaws. And the 2 are not the same issues. And at this point, I would again like to clearly apologize for any miscommunication, because I think sometimes that line is not visible to the public, and there was nothing in council's motions that would be evicting people from their home. Specifically, council's motions, I think by Councillor Mealy, were to provide extra time before anything is done so that we can proceed through our legislative process. In my view, what we're here to do is that ensure where people live is safe, but we're not here to decide where people live. Where people choose to live is their choice. Unfortunately, it may be influenced by a number of factors beyond our control. But what's important is council can and should make rules to ensure those shelters are safe, at least as safe as possible, and that they're not subject to any type of exploitation. That doesn't mean that the RV parks we were talking about are subject to exploitation. They are probably good examples of the good ones. But without a rule or a description to weigh and measure these types of things, we can't decide which are the good ones and which are the bad ones. So for the sake of brevity, nobody's getting kicked out. Need a rule to decide how people can live safely and make sure they're not exploited.
Thank you. Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to thank Councillor Petola for starting the conversation on this. I'm on holidays right now, but when I returned, I was going to bring forward some kind of suggestions to create some kind of a bylaw and guidelines on a recreational vehicle park. And the reason I voted against the temporary use permits that came forward is because I didn't feel the temporary use permit gave enough guidelines for a recreational vehicle park. And I felt this could really open up to the public that maybe are not as good operators as the two people came forward. I guess 4th Avenue Trailer Park still haunts me to this day, and I just didn't want it to give people the opportunity to, if they had a spare lot or a large backyard, they were going to decide to put recreational vehicles on there. So I did have come up with some research, and I found that Nanaimo does have such a bylaw, and they have created a recreational vehicle park zone, separate zoning just for that. And it's a site that is intended for the accommodation of persons in recreational vehicles and park model trailers. This bylaw contains very specific guidelines and requirements, including access and roadways, signage, water supply, fire protection, sewage disposal, storm sewers, service buildings, street lighting, and garbage. So I won't be supporting Councillor Petola's motion as presented, but I would like to move forward with some kind of a motion to have staff look at a bylaw or give a report on a bylaw to create a recreational vehicle park with these kind of guidelines included. Thank you.
I think I'll give Councillor Petola the opportunity to speak to that before I go to Councillor Solda, just because the motion wasn't written, but what I heard, I think did leave room for that because it was sort of a starting point of a report and a question of what we would like to see this potentially look like. So Councillor Petola, maybe you could clarify based on Councillor Haggard's comments, if there is alignment there or if I possibly misheard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and you're absolutely correct. There's not only alignment, there's duplicity. Councillor Haggard and I seem to be thinking exactly the same way.
Perfect.
Councillor Haggard has thankfully referred to the Nanaimo bylaw, which was one that was reviewed when I put together the materials for discussion. And the materials for discussion are certainly not what I recommend the end product to be. They are materials so that when council reviews them, if they decide that that's the type of discussion they want, it's very clear to staff what types of things we're thinking about, which include the Nanaimo solution or whatever other solutions that administration might suggest for Port Alberni on that issue. So however Councillor Haggard votes, if this motion fails, I'm sure I'll be in support of her motion when she returns.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Solda.
So, Madam Mayor, they actually do have, I believe their license is that they can have recreation trailers there, but they can't be long-term behind the Redford. Is that not correct? Maybe we can get some detail on that because they do have short-term. When I had a 2-hour meeting with them, they said they have a short-term and it's the business license. They don't have it. It's on the connected with the Redford Hotel and they're nodding their head. So maybe we could just get some idea.
I think we can give our Director of Development Services an opportunity to speak because I think there's a couple of things, statements being made that are potentially confusing. But that said, I think we also want to make sure to clarify that the motion that's on the floor right now is not specifically to address the previous temporary use permit application we had. So this would be a look at a general bylaw. And so I think we want to make sure we don't get too focused in on a specific previous application. I am going to go to our Director of Development Services for some impromptu comments. And specifically because Councillor Patola, you said nobody's getting kicked out, nobody's, and I think that's a confusing statement based on the fact that council did not approve the temporary use permit or permit it to come forward. So while I did just say we shouldn't get too focused in on one previous application, I am going to ask for clarification on the city's current stance given council's direction on that application. And then maybe we can move on to talking about this issue generally.
Okay, so I'll do my best. So the current direction on the Redford Street use of RVs and trailers for long-term residential use has been denied by council, and council passed a second motion not to enforce the zoning bylaw until July of this year. And that's the current direction that has been received by staff on that particular site on property. On the Wood Avenue site, in that particular instance, council approved a temporary use permit with conditions that need to be met. Seeing where potentially some of this going, one thing I might want to ask the committee of the whole to consider is because this level of work will take some time. It's not in our current work plan or anything like this. If council and Cal wishes to recommend this and move forward and task staff with this level of work, I would also ask council or the committee to consider another motion, essentially directing staff not to enforce its zoning bylaw on these two properties until this work is complete, or something along those lines. Again, just for your consideration, because that would then not require those tenancies to be, or those RVs to be moved off that site until further work is done and presented to council. Again, I just put that out there for the committee's whole, if that is the direction that this council may be wishing to go. Because I have to tell you, this will take some time. It's never as simple as it appears to be. And council has directed us to refocus time on the OCP, which is going to take us amount of time. So I just can't guarantee that this would not get done before July. So if council wants us to do that work and not do that, I would ask council to consider that as a separate motion, if you wish.
Thank you. If this motion passes, I'll be happy to bring that forward. I think that that would make a lot of sense, and then allows us as well to have the conversation about the broader intent here without focusing it specifically right away on that specific application or the two. Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think that's probably a good direction to go in. I think what people listening and people present need to be clear on is, first of all, that, at least in my point of view, again, we are not taking a government's draconian point of view to say, this is where you shall live. That's not what we're here for. But we are taking a point of view of saying that as a government, we have the authority and responsibility to people to keep them safe. In that conversation, which I don't know how it's going to go, but in that conversation, council will likely have to decide some minimum level of occupancy that's acceptable. Currently, the way it's all worded, long-term tenancy in RVs isn't acceptable. For whatever reason, whoever put that rule in said. And that's why we're reviewing this now to see whether or not that's appropriate. And certainly there's a wide variation within that terminology of what's an RV. I'll repeat myself, some people will have heard this before, but my neighbor lives in an RV. She bought it last year. It's $150,000 fifth wheel. That's beautiful. I would live in there. And it comes with all the current manufacturer safety requirements, extra exits, fire retardation, all that kind of stuff. And perhaps somebody that's living in a 1972 Vanguard motorhome with a no membrane anymore, that may not currently be existing to the standard that it was manufactured to. And so there are just standards, and somewhere council will likely have to determine what minimum standard we find acceptable. But that doesn't mean that we're going to just blanketly say this class of shelter is not available to people. And who knows, it could go even deeper. I have no idea. It could go to if your shelter is a tent, where's the appropriate place for it? So this is a much deeper discussion. And when I said nobody's getting kicked out, I referred exactly to what our director said, which was nobody's getting kicked out yet. And if we make a new motion as the mayor has presented, then I'll be correct in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Solda and then Councillor Haggard.
Well, Madam Mayor, I'm going to kind of mention, if anybody wants to change the zoning, there has to be time, you know, and I'm saying the director of, Scott, well, he needs the time, which is great. He can take as long as he wants, but the people, in this case, I'd rather see the OCP plan finished and because we've been waiting a long time for that. So I think that's much more priority. But the thing is regarding the Redford that we're not talking about kind of is the people need to have some security. I mean, if this motion that you're going to bring is going to be and looked at by Scott, then I don't want to see them leave in September. They need some time to move from A to B. So whatever motion you're bringing back, that has to be looked at, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Dame.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think that initially my reasoning for being opposed to the temporary use permit was essentially that I felt that it was the wrong tool, and I felt that without an end goal that we were working towards, it wasn't appropriate. But this, I do appreciate that this gives an end goal, that this gives something that we were working towards, and it and the whole process feels transitionary. I do have some concerns. I am concerned about staff prioritization. And I am also concerned about, I wouldn't want us to assume that in the end, we would have a set of standards that would necessarily mean that none of these people would have their housing still be in an unstable position because standards sometimes may not be met. And so I just think that it's important that we go into this with our heads up about what we're doing here. And this is not trying to find a way to just blanket. And I don't think that's the intention. But I just want to make sure that everybody knows that I don't know that the end result here is that we aren't back here still going, okay, but there's still people struggling to find housing. And so as long as we all know what this process is and what we're working towards, I certainly support the report, the request for a report, and in this process. Yeah, but I just don't know if it's as cut and dry as we might like it to be. But yeah.
Thank you. Absolutely. And apologies, Councillor Haggard, I skipped you.
That's okay, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Patola, for the clarification. I think you're just being more general and I was being more specific. So I think we're basically on the same page here. So I'm fine supporting the motion.
Wonderful. Scott.
I guess I would just like to add that, certainly if the council directs staff, we will do the research and bring the information back to council. But to Councillor Dame's point, RVs and campers are not manufactured to a residential long-term standard. That is just that's not their intent. That's not what they're built for. They're not a CSA rated modular or mobile home. They are built for transitional, short-term use. That being said, staff will certainly do more research, look at what other municipalities are looking at for these things, and bring that information back for the committee of the whole and council to consider at a future time.
Thank you, Scott. Does anyone need clarification on the motion? Go ahead, Councillor Patola, read that again.
Perhaps this corporate officer could read it.
I would be pleased to. Moved and seconded that the committee of the whole recommend, sorry, it wasn't moved and seconded yet. That the committee of the whole recommend council direct administration to review, redraft, and provide a report with guidance on the materials included for the proposed occupancy bylaw.
Thank you. It was moved and seconded. Okay, great. And not seeing any other comments on the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carried. And Councillor Patola, you did say two motions. I will make one as well after, unless yours covers it, but go ahead if you want to go first.
I think you should go first, Madam Mayor.
I'll go first. I will move that the committee recommend to council that staff do not enforce the zoning bylaw until such a date that the process for the previous report requested has completed and recommendations have been made and implemented by council if council chooses to do that. Seconded by Councillor Solda. Apologies for that very wordy, rambly motion that I didn't plan today. Councillor Mealy.
I think we've got a bunch of motions that we didn't plan today, so that's okay. It's quite all right. My only concern is the timing of when we will come back and have this information. And the reason why, and Councillor Patola did make reference to my motion that I tried to have the other day. The reason why I wanted to add a year on is because I think it's unfair to have people move in the wintertime. That's why. So as long as kind of we're on the same page there, I'm not asking for an amendment per se, but I just want to make sure that that if this comes back in November, and then we say we're going to start enforcing, that enforcement doesn't happen at Christmas time or winter time. The best time for anybody to move really is spring to summer. So
Thank you. I think that's a great point. I would imagine that with the previous motion that was made, I know it was for a specific period or for a specific month, but I would say the intent was to give a specific amount of notice almost. So I think that works still, that once we have completion of this process, and I think it might take a little while. Scott, you can comment on that. Go ahead. That we would give a notice period beyond that if there were changes to be made.
This will take some time, but I think the information that would be coming back to the committee of the whole and council for consideration will include timely, if one of the options is to not move forward to allow things like this. Again, like we did for the previous one, we would recommend giving reasonable time at a reasonable time of years to enforce if that was the final direction to go. So please be assured that this is going to take some time. And we would bring forward information so that we are not putting people into that kind of circumstance, and council will have options.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Okay, Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Excellent drafting off the top of your head, in my humble opinion. Although the only thing that could be added would be the specific bylaw that we are referring to. But perhaps someone could suggest what the specific bylaw is.
We're getting a thumbs up from our corporate officer that she knows the specific bylaw that we're referencing. So she will insert it into the motion and that will come to council. Thank you. Councillor Solda.
I understand where Councillor Mealy is coming from. It's the stability of these people, if it comes back in November, and I have no doubt staff will make sure it's looked after in that. But in my mind, if I was a resident in one of these trailers and I'm going, okay, so here we are. I've heard what council says, but gee, I don't know, I'd be really concerned. And it's stability, and you can see the nods going on here. So I would like to see more of a definition, a year or something like that. However we word it, I don't care. It's just, it concerns me on that.
Thank you. Councillor Mealy.
thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Solda. I appreciate that. And the answer that I've gotten from Mr. Smith here, I think we'll cover it for now. Just knowing full well is that we're not trying to just kick people out in the middle of the winter. That's kind of where we're at. And I got that answer from Mr. Smith. So it's going to take some time, of course, and I appreciate all the work that they do. So so if it has to come forward at a future meeting where we have to define a time, I think we can do that. But as of right now, I can put trust in staff at this point.
Thank you. Councillor Dame and then Councillor Solda.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I would just like to make a quick comment that I think we need to be careful when we speak about, we use terms like kicking people out and things. That was never what council was what was brought to us was a temporary use permit to use a property that was non-compliant for the bylaw. It was never about the tenants, even though certainly that is an implication that we can keep in mind. But I just want to make sure that it's clear that our focus was and should be on the request that was brought forward, which was a temporary use permit. And I just want to make sure that it's not, the framing is important to me because certainly it's weighed heavy on me knowing what the result would be for a lot of people. And that was never, that was,
Thank you. Councillor Solda and then Councillor Mealy.
Councillor Dame, you're absolutely right. But also, I still like to see some stability for the people that are living there. You know, when we look after, I don't know, maybe Scott can give us an idea. Do you think it's going to be 6 months, 7 months, a year down the road? I know I'm just throwing it at you just because of stability. You know, I'd be really stressed as a resident.
Thanks. I'm going to go to our CAO for a comment.
Yeah, so Madam Mayor, so I think we'll bring the information forward. It's going to take us some time. At that time, council has the option to set the time, right? So it's still coming back to council. So it's important to know that you still have control in this matter.
Okay, absolutely. I think additionally as well, this is a recommendation to council. It will come to council. So if we reflect on this motion and think we can write something better that is more incorporative of the specifics that we would like, then we have that option as well when this comes to the next council meeting. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just through you to Councillor Damon, I do apologize. Yes, I should be using the terms by law enforcement, and I do apologize. We're not looking to kick people out, and I appreciate his comments and wouldn't want to upset Councillor Dame for that. And I appreciate his comments, definitely.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you. And Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to make the exact same wording of the motion, but take out occupancy bylaw and put in rental accommodation bylaw in its place.
The second motion, could you read it?
Could the corporate officer read it?
I would be pleased to. That the Committee of the Whole recommend Council direct administration to review, redraft, and provide a report with guidance on the materials included for the proposed rental accommodation bylaw.
Got it. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Mealy. And did you want to speak to that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes. I really value the discussion that we've had so far. And I was torn by some of the exact same observations that all of council has made. And that is when we're dealing with the temporary use permit, it was a tool that was not the right tool. So it's similar to, and we've all had this experience, using a butter knife as a screwdriver, and using a screwdriver as a pry bar, and using a pry bar as a hammer, and just doing the wrong thing with the wrong tool. So, and what occurred to me is that we don't have these tools in our toolbox. We need to go to the hardware store and get the right tools. So the previous motion was one type of tool, but in thinking about that, it was addressed at temporary types of accommodations, tiny homes, RVs, mobile homes. But there was nothing addressed towards the safety of individuals living in structures that have been granted occupancy permits and then altered. So for example, basement suites or secondary suites of any type that are now legal by way of density rules, but not necessarily yet legal by way of building code and fire standards. And so this second motion is to extend the work to apply to an enforcement mechanism around substandard living arrangements. Again, not directed at tenants, but directed at the landlords that provide those. For example, if someone was in a basement suite with a bedroom that doesn't have a window, I would be concerned that they don't have a fire escape. And if someone was living in a converted apartment building where their suite had only one exit, I would be concerned. So And of course, the examples can go further and further and further. Now, in the wisdom of Councillor Poon, I recognize that we can't do everything all at once because then we do nothing. But these two pieces of issues to discuss for council kind of go hand in hand. One follows another, and they are all going to be subject to appropriate wording, conditioning for our local conditions, funding capacity, and a number of things. But having turned my mind to the issue much more deeply than I had before, I realized that safety for all of the people that live in Port Alberni is important. And I can't think of an example where it's the tenant that's being not compliant and being unsafe. It's the landlord that's being unsafe and non-compliant and not providing the appropriate safety measures. It's something that isn't really enforced except through municipalities. And at this point, I thought it is high time that we make advancements in that direction. And I'm not suggesting to Mr. Smith or to the CAO or to anyone on this council that it's done tomorrow, but we do need to bring the issue to light. And even if it's small steps, make some steps forward while we can as this council, and hopefully provide a foundation for the next council to continue the work.
Thank you. I think this is a great intent. I want to ask our Director of Development Services if we have something in place right now that does enable pieces of this. And I think back to the work that we did maybe like 10 years ago on that we started at that point on secondary suites specifically, because the issue that existed in the community at the time was in order to have a secondary suite, it had to be a legal secondary suite, which was quite a high bar to meet. So what we had, and because we had too high of a bar, was a whole bunch of secondary suites that had not had safety inspections because they just didn't meet the secondary suite program. But we have made some changes to that since. And I just wonder if we, you don't necessarily have to speak to this 100% today, but if what we do have in place right now, and, I know we have additional powers through fire orders and things like that, do we have the tools, or is it a gap at a high level?
It is somewhat of a gap given our capacity, and essentially we rely on public complaints to look at things like at this. There's still the requirement to meet code, and that has been a detriment to people uptaking and renovating old secondary suites to meet proper code. Certainly we would do the research on something like this. I think part of it would be if the city was looking to take a more proactive role on looking at these types of things. There would be staffing implications, and that would be part of the research that would have to be presented to the COW and council for.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that makes sense. I mean, if we want to proactively enforce, that's one thing, having the capacity to enforce. I think my question was more, do we have the legislative tools if we become aware of an issue? And, we have had a lot of substandard rental housing in this community, and we have gone through, quite a process with that. And what we found at the time is we certainly don't always have the legislative tool that we need. We have to get to it in a roundabout way. So I think I'm sort of understanding there's a proactive approach that, yes, I think we'd all love to get to. But short of that, there's the tools and bylaws and resources. So is that a gap currently today?
Without having put a lot of thought to this, there might be a bit of a gap there in that the city's right to go and inspect on somebody's home. So if if we can't really prove that somebody's living in a secondary suite, we don't have the right to go on private property and say we're coming to do an inspection on there clearly, right? So There may be, if we want to be more engaged on this, there may be a need to look at some different rules and regulations, and I don't know what that exactly looks like. That's not something that we have looked at carefully.
Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to clarify with Councillor Patola again. Maybe he's being more general than I'm being more specific. Last council term, we actually did send a resolution to UPCM about setting minimum standards for housing. And I'm thinking of examples in our community such as Port Pop and right now Harborview Apartments, where it's been very substandard housing, but the provincial government continues to send in rent accommodation checks. So the landlord has absolutely no incentive to fix up that housing because they get the money no matter what they do. And we have been advocating at UPCM several times about trying to set minimums, have the province set minimum standards for housing that they support financially. By sending out rental accommodation checks for people who live there. So are you referring to that kind of accommodation? Or are you referring to more secondary suites or both? Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Councillor Haggard. I think both, but understanding that, of course, enforcement is a different issue than the tool. And I think what I'm suggesting is that we need to develop the tool, and then enforcement would be a separate conversation. But as it is now, the tools we have that we rely on for, as you mentioned, the Port Pub is an excellent example. We didn't have the ability to withdraw occupancy flat out for the reasons that we have. All that we could do was rely on the fire code and wait till the situation progressed to a point where the fire code would deny occupancy. And I think that we have an opportunity to develop a tool that is better designed for the specific issues we deal with. And it would be really, truly directed at situations like the Port Pub, like other residences that are clearly substandard, but we don't have except for how we use our nuisance bylaws, we don't really have a tool directed at that. I could be wrong, but I just, in my thinking about those possible resolutions of some of those situations, an ability to force occupancy to be removed is certainly a way to go about that. That doesn't mean, again, making people homeless, but for example, with the Port Pub, instead of having people removed by fire order on 1 day's notice, we could use the new tool to provide people adequate notice and minimize the anxiety of moving and maximize the input of all of the service organizations that, thankfully, with the Port Pub example, were able to rally together and every individual was housed. It'd be just easier for those resources to achieve that if they had more notice and a different process. So, sorry, long answer, but yes to both, but prioritizing those that are the worst first.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to go to Director of Development Services now.
Along those same lines, if directed to do this work, part of our work would also be determining what's the local government's legislative authority to do some of the things that the committee is discussing here. So, we would, and so I don't know all our authorities. And so, part of it may still have to be advocacy to the province to it. But if directed to do this work, part of it would be, here's what local government is legislatively allowed to do. And here's the bylaws you could consider. So it wouldn't be just, it wouldn't say, okay, we're going to be able to do all this, all these things. Some of it might be, there might be some limitations based on what legislative authority local government does have.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay. Then motion is moved and seconded. On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Councillor Patola. Yes, Councillor Mealy.
Just because I think everybody's putting notices of motions forward, may I do one real quick? Thank you very much. And staff doesn't have to write it down. I have it in an email ready to go. So just trying to be as nice as possible. I will make a notice of motion that the committee of the whole recommend council direct staff to change council procedures bylaw number 4830 to include a new item for committee of the whole meetings labeled council's response to take place right after the public input period as listed under part 9 committees number 40 subsection 1 order of procedures and business at a committee of the whole, and delete number 41 subsection 6 council or committee member may ask or answer questions of a member of public who is addressing the committee but not must enter into a debate. That's a notice of motion,
Thank you.
and I'll send it.
Okay, great. Then wonderful. Any other notices of motion? Councillor Patola.
I do not have a notice of motion, Madam Mayor, but I not announcing with any fanfare that I will be on vacation for the next month until April 17th. And having heard Councillor Mealy's notice of motion, if council was, if the committee was acceptable, I would move that we hear that motion now as for the committee. It's really well worded.
Thank you very much. I took a lot of time, but as time, I put it as a notice of motion. I will keep it as that.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no other comments, we will go to question period. This is an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions. Come on forward.
Hi there. My name is Surendra Lumba. I'm here with Redford Motel. I want to start out by thanking everybody to bring this last topic we were speaking about, bringing it back up. Bringing some hope to this topic for our friends here. And I want to thank the council members who had a chance to go to the property, visit it in person, provide some reassurances to our friends here. And it was very encouraging. What's not very encouraging is some of the stuff that was mentioned here. Thank you, Councillor Patola, for everything you said. The line about nobody's going anywhere, it sounded great. However, now we're open-ended, and just like how Councillor Solda said, that it's our friends here don't know if they're going to be celebrating Christmas next year at the same place, right? And while we're discussing these matters, and it's great, we're going to set some standards here by the sounds of it, or hope to anyways, which will be good for everybody. But the thing is now the end date was July, and now it's somewhere out there. And we're not sure where it is, and I'm sure it's not going to feel good for our friends here either. We were denied our TPU, or rather TUP, but it's almost better to put an end date on here so people can feel some comfort while they're staying there, plan their futures, plan their budgets, plan how much they're going to set aside for food. So we were hoping to stay consistent with some of the decisions that have already been made before in similar cases, and at least provide an end date while the work is done.
Thank you. So I think that's really excellent feedback. So the end date that was originally put in place was July. Today we recommended to council. So this body, which is the same, but we don't make formal decisions. We have more discussion, and we will talk about this again at the not this coming. At Monday's meeting. Okay. So this will come up again next Monday. We recommended that end date be removed, and that the end date would float more with when we get this work done around reviews. The intent there is that the end date would go beyond July. Not earlier than July. It would go beyond July. Appreciate your input that you'd rather have some end date than a floating date. I think council could take that input into consideration when we make the decision next Monday, if we want to move forward with this or not. What I understood from council's intent, if I can summarize somewhat, is that there's a hope and certainly a chance that when if we are to move forward with a new bylaw to enable this type of living, that there's a chance that will suit what you have right now. And in that case, there would not be an end date. It would be the potential that you'd be permitted to continue to do it. So it wouldn't make sense for us to say, start enforcing in July, and then in December, we fully enable what you're doing, and you've already asked everyone to leave. So the intent is to give more time while we work through our process. That doesn't prohibit you from doing other things with your property, of course, in the meantime, if you choose to make other decisions. And certainly, you can continue to give feedback to council. If you would like that end date to not be changed, then we would, like to hear that as well.
Okay. So we look forward to the next council meeting then to see what decisions are made. Again, you put yourselves in these people's shoes, you know how the feeling would be, right? You don't know how long you're going to stay there. It just would be nice to have an end date. And not that we want an end date, but it just would be nice to define that, because now July is canceled. It might be November. And then, of course, if things don't go the way we're hoping to, well, then it'll just be a longer lead time into go finding someone else. At the end of the day, we can all agree that, the RVs, whether they're parked there or not, they're going to end up somewhere. So these folks are comfortable where they are. They have a nice facility. We're set up for an RV park anyhow, right? So hopefully we can carry on with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much for coming. Gentlemen, appreciate that. And I guess that's the whole discussion was before, and then Councillor Patola talked about the motion that I made to extend it for a full year, and then to get the explanation from Mr. Smith as well. And I get what you're saying. The feeling here right now is council, if I may, council doesn't want to have anybody moved out of any homes or any bylaw enforcement in the wintertime, especially. So I totally understand, and that's why. And if we need to do that at the next meeting, I don't mind trying my motion again. If we feel that we need to put a time on it, I would love to see at least next summer as a time, so to get everybody an idea. And then if anybody has to move in any way, at least it's during the summer, not during the winter. So that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
Neil Anderson, it's a bit confusing getting through all this stuff on Mr. Patola's recommendations to council. And I think that's what Mayor Minions, you said, you called it a recommendation to council. And I never looked at it as such, but I prepared. I looked at that as being a discussion paper. It covered so many different factors. And the one that it really interested me was the latter discussions about people who have suites in their houses. Council tried to deal with that a number of years ago. And although I commend Councillor Patel, I thought that what he did, he was excellent. It drew out all the things that have to be considered in very clear form. But that was not a recommendation to council to vote on. Now, if I understood right, I think Chairperson Minions had said that, I may have got this wrong, that it wouldn't go through the first, second, and third reading at the moment. There was more work that has to be done on it before it gets to that point. Was I mistaken there?
I'm not clear on what you're asking. Which of the motions? Councillor Patola, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think, Mr. Anderson, you're completely correct. That perhaps the vernacular wording that we use, the way we phrase things at these committee meetings and council meetings may be misleading or hard to interpret, but you're absolutely correct. It's a discussion paper. It's material that was put before this committee to start a discussion, and we're at the very very early stages of that discussion. And of course, because we're in committee has to recommend to council. that council should start that discussion based on that discussion paper, which is an excellent title for it. And then council will start that discussion by referring the discussion paper to administration to provide us their wisdom and insights on how things actually function in the real world. And eventually that will come back as a report with some suggestions in it. Those suggestions may go to a bylaw, and that bylaw may have to go through, would then have to go through 3 readings. So yes, many steps still in this journey. But as they say, the journey of 1,000 steps, this was the first one.
Yeah, you start off with the document we have here. And forget how many parts, but I did quickly read through the whole thing. And it talks about, in some cases, complaint driven. And it uses words like may, all things, which is fair enough in the document because these are things that have to be worked out and there has to be clarification and all that stuff. And it's a horrendous job to do all that. I'm also interested to see, because of the different parts on that submission, whether you'd be voting on it as a whole, or some of those should be voted on separately. Because they're quite varied in what they're talking about.
Yep.
And to just blanket them all together, I think would be a big mistake. But my opinion doesn't count for too much.
And so as it came forward today, there will be 2 separate motions that will go to council to vote on. But the actual intent of the discussion paper would come back likely very different in forms of recommendations and input from staff. And that would be voted on in a very different way.
And any soliciting of the public, because the people that I don't want to draw this out because yeah, I've taken up justly in my opinion enough time, but anyway, for example, how just on an average, we tried this a number of years back, or we, the city council, they tried to get people to come and register their suites because there were so many that were not legally, some of them were a horrible mess. No one should ever live in them. And I saw many of them when I was looking around at houses. And how many of and you put out a suggestion that anyone could register their suite, that people could come in and they'd have visually looked to see if they're clean and tidy, electrical was good, and everything was safe conditions. They wouldn't be required to tear down walls and dismantle their so-called renovations in order to do this. And 2 questions I have is, how many people responded to that?
We don't have that information today.
My information that came back consistently was almost 0. And the other thing was, how does a person today, moving forward, legitimize the suite that they have, and the difference between, let's say, a suite in your basement or a suite that's that you have your mother, father occupying? Is there a difference? Because in that case, it is different. In that case, you're housing your parents, you're looking after them, you're giving the comfort of dealing with the family. So there's a difference there. These are all the little things that are going to creep up and need to be addressed. And it's not a 6 months, this is a 2-year to do it right.
Councilor
And we
Patola.
had other notes. I'm not going to
Thank you.
carry on with it. There's a
Yeah, Mr. Anderson, you're absolutely,
enforcement is the other thing.
Sorry, I'm just gonna,
Horrendous.
Councilor Patola was responding to a
Yes, I
to your
understand
question,
that. That's
so
very
I'm
good.
gonna let him go ahead and do that.
yes, Mr. Anderson, you're absolutely correct. These are things that will need to be
Thank you.
considered. And we're certainly, I mean, those are questions that might be answered at step 4 or 5. And certainly we can't even guess at what the answer might be until we go from step 1 to step 2. So valid observations that may or may not be relevant in the future. because we don't know what the document is actually going to address specifically in the future. So
Okay.
certainly write those down, keep a note of them, bring them back when we're at step 4 or 5.
If you have a chance to bring them back. My last point is if something maybe you don't gonna answer, you can't answer today. How does someone register a suite that isn't registered? It's been done according to codes, but hasn't like
Or
I've
our Director of Development Services.
They would make application for a building permit to have a secondary suite in their unit, in their residential home. And we
And-
would go through an inspection process to ensure that it meets code.
So pictures of anything that should be structurally or,
They would need to make an application for a building.
okay. That might help, but thank you.
Thank you. Randy?
Oh, Randy Fraser. I have a question maybe or two concerning the recent inspection of the wastewater treatment facility by the ministry. And yeah, I guess almost 4 years in to operation and having like 4 managers overseeing it, it's a little disappointing that we haven't got the bugs figured out yet. Unfortunately, and a number of the issues that I was reading up on certainly just require working with the ministry to adjust your operating certificate, right? So, but I just really want to ask us, some of the reporting is that we'll be in compliance very shortly or very soon, right? But my real question is back in the 2024 inspection, the old lagoon was supposed to be desludged. Still not desludged, it's still not closed. We haven't followed the closure plan. So that's quite an operation. So how are we going to do that in a short term? Or is there a plan to start desludging and restoration of the old lagoon and the monitoring of it?
Theo?
Madam Mayor, the plan is to find the most effective way to do it and become compliant with the decommissioned lagoon. So we will work with the ministries. There's other interests in the community that need to be met and meet the requirements for MOE to have this remediated. So really looking at the most cost-effective manner that we can. The priority is to make sure that the operations of the current lagoon is functioning, and the Director of Infrastructure is working on a plan as we speak.
Yeah, the treatment plan is doing the old lagoon under the 23 closure plan needs to be desludged. Should have been done by 24. Now we're into 26 with no plan to desludge it. We don't have a restoration plan yet that was supposed to be done a long time ago. So yeah, just wondering when are those, because desludging is going to have a huge cost to it. So are we prepared for that?
Thank you. Yes, we are aware of the cost and aware
Okay.
staff are working on plans currently.
Yeah.
And the ministry is aware of where we're at.
Yes, I'm sure they are. Thank you.
Leslie?
Good evening. Nice to stretch. Oh, yeah, long meeting. My first question is in regards to the agenda, and it's the financial plan, number 9. It says increase allocation for the sewer infrastructure reserve fund for $20,000. So what exactly is the allocation for?
Andrew?
Madam Mayor, it's the $20,000 for the sewer asset that's being purchased through the vehicle and equipment ERF replacement.
Oh, it's for sewer ERF or vehicles in the sewer. Is that right? Okay, whatever. And project 25074, 150 time immemorial at Victoria Quay. What project is that?
That's the replacement of the whaling structure building and
Oh.
a few other things along Victoria Quay improvements.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Because it looks wonderful. All right. Now for my other questions that I have. When it was budget time, I came before council and I asked when the water meter report was going to be presented to council. Do we have a date for that yet?
See you.
Madam Mayor, we do have a draft that's in for review, so I'm looking at that. So we are planning to bring that in the next month or two on that one.
Thank you.
Next month or two. Will it be at a regular meeting or a committee of the whole?
Madam Mayor, we like to bring these things to the committee of the whole to have discussions, so that is the plan.
For two. Okay. I will keep monitoring then. A couple of meetings ago, I also asked about the Advisory Planning Commission, and I noticed a meeting has not been scheduled for March. I'm just wondering when these meetings are going to begin.
Scott.
We don't have an exact date of when we're going to restart them. Our intention is, as our new staff get trained up, to bring that forward. But we actually don't have a current an application that we would bring forward right now in the immediate future, but we do intend to bring them forward. I don't have an exact date, but those are public meetings, and so we do publish that agenda. So when that is, it will be done, but I don't have an exact date of when we will restart the Advisory Planning Commission.
Yeah, I've been watching. Be waiting, especially because the Rainbow Gardens is coming up. So I would thought that would have been part of the discussion at an Advisory Planning Commission.
Scott.
I guess I just want, that originally did go to the Advisory Planning Commission, and of course it went through a bylaw process, and council then directed staff to work with the applicant to redo their plans, and that is now coming forward to a public hearing. So that one would not have gone back to the Advisory Planning Commission.
Oh, okay. I thought it would, just because it had been amended. Okay, good to know. Thank you. Also, my next question is to do with the SOMAS lands. And when will the developer, Matthews West, be providing an update on the SOMAS lands and engage the community?
Andrew.
We work with Matthews and have meetings regularly, and we can follow up with Matthews on their timeline.
Yeah, it's been almost a year, and on the website it says there will be updates, and there's no update on the
We had a lot of negotiations that we had to do in the background, obviously, and we've released updates regularly as we've had them, but these major projects do move slowly. I know that we are awaiting what the plans for master planning will look like. And obviously there's been a lot of ongoing testing on the site as well that has been, so there's been updates as we've released information about different stages.
There hasn't been an update since May last year, so that's
We've
why I'm asking.
provided updates in council meetings.
Oh, okay. But not to the Let's Connect website. No, that's not. Which is where I would be looking for the information. Okay, this is, it's a curiosity question, and it's in regards to Rainbow Gardens. And it's for the type of accommodations that are being considered for that site. Is it supportive housing like it is for Second Avenue complex? Or is it low cost affordable housing for seniors or something else?
Scott.
So the public hearing is actually next Monday, I believe. But our information from the society is this is proposed to be low affordable seniors housing. And so the zoning bylaw that is being considered is that's what is being proposed on there. So it's not supportive housing. It's not a similar supportive housing project as what is being considered on Second Avenue.
Okay, but does the zoning cover both kind of accommodations so that they could switch?
I don't have the exact zoning in front of me, but I believe it does not permit supportive housing as a principal permitted use.
Okay.
But that, again, that will be on the public hearing agenda. So that bylaw will be part of that public hearing agenda. So members of the public will be able to see that and ask questions of staff and council at the public hearing.
Okay, so you'll have that information there. That's good. Great, thank you. My last question is, at Victoria Quay, I see a washroom sitting out there, but it's got a close sign on it. When is this facility going to be open?
Andrew.
Madam Mayor, we're working with the electrical contractor and contractors to finish up items on the site. And then once we have everything complete, then we'd be opening that up. So we're getting pretty close to that one.
Thank you.
So for the summer, it will be open. Good. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Roland.
And the microphone's on. Roland Smith, Port Alberni. I'm just going to ask a few questions related to the 23-page document that makes up the Port Alberni Wastewater Treatment Facility Operational Certificate number 110576, issued under the provisions of the Environmental Management Act on March 7th, 2022, which was 1,471 days ago. The city just got recently, was reported in the media about 10 or so days ago. Apparently there's an article out today. I was advised there's a print article out on this subject. Haven't seen the article yet, so I haven't reviewed it. But because we've got over $40 million invested in this facility, it was, the city was issued a certificate to operate 1,471 days ago, and the list of items that we're not compliant on is a little bit concerning. I realize that there are a lot of, it's a big project and there are a lot of items and things don't always work out as planned. But I think there's been ample opportunity and time to have gotten some of this stuff addressed, and apparently it's not. So Mr. Fraser covered a couple of points, so that saves me from going over them. But there's some other items in here that I think are reasonably significant. I don't know where the government or the regulator opinion is on where the city is at on this. You folks can let me know. But one of the items that jumped out at me again on going back and reviewing this after being made aware of another compliance enforcement letter was that in Article 2.8.1 in this plan, and I need to read the verbiage so the question makes context, the operational certificate holder must maintain and implement a contingency plan for the lift stations, City of Port Alberni Wastewater Treatment Facility, and effluent disposal works prepared by a qualified professional that will address the appropriate course of action to be taken in any preconceived emergency situation, including but not limited to the following: an action plan for mitigating the impacts of tsunamis, earthquakes, and storm surges, including the required training and resources to implement those procedures. And further, that the operational certificate holder is to conduct scheduled emergency response drills and exercises to test and refine the contingency plan. So the question is, very short, I'm not looking for an editorial, has a contingency plan been established? Just a yes or no question.
Andrew.
Madam Mayor, I'd have to get back and confirm on where we are with a contingency plan, but I believe that everything that we have committed to in the liquid waste management plan, we would have to move forward with. So it's something that I don't have the answer off the top of my head, but I can get that for the member of the public to address that question.
We'll get that information to you, Roland.
Okay, so right now there's a question mark whether it exists or not, so that's okay. We'll let everybody decide for themselves. From the city's website, under committees and commissions and boards, it said they are established to consider important issues that affect Port Alberni. These bodies are formally established by council and in some cases are required by provincial legislation to review and assist in the decision-making process. Article 2.9 from the Wastewater Treatment Facility Certificate, the operational certificate holder must maintain a liquid waste management plan monitoring committee, or PMC, to provide advice to the City of Port Alberni on liquid waste management plan commitments and the receiving environment monitoring program, including the managed release of effluent and trigger response plan. Now, I understand that on the effluent monitoring program, the city's recently hired firm that is going to be doing that work. Is that correct? Do I have that correct?
Andrew.
We do have a committee that is meeting, so to answer the question, we have that committee active.
Additional question was if we, so yes to the committee currently, and additional question was if we've hired a company to monitor the effluent.
Madam Mayor, we do have, went through an RFP, so we're going through the process.
So if there's a waste management plan monitoring committee, why is that not on the city's website under committees, commissions, and boards? And the parameters established by the certificate, I'm reading directly from the certificate, is that this committee is to define the purpose, mandate, membership structure, meeting frequency, procedures, and reporting structure. Where is the schedule for the meetings? Who are the members? When have they met? Are there minutes? If this committee exists, where is it and who are they?
So I just want to say, first of all, we do have many committees that are administrative committees that are not listed on council's commission and committees. So that is not an inclusive list of all of the committees that we have at the City of Port Alberni. But it's take your question still. And Andrew, I'm not sure if you have the information today to provide to that or not.
Madam Mayor, I can reach out to the Director of Infrastructure and make sure that we have the information to follow up on that question.
Yeah, and we can get that information back to you.
Okay, because it clearly defines that members of the community, and there's a bunch of different people that are supposed to be on this committee. That's according to the terms of the certificate. So, all right, so Mr. Fraser addressed those. The liquid waste numbered item 2.17, liquid waste management plan review. The operational certificate holder must review their liquid waste management plan every 5 years. The first review must occur in 2026, so this year, and include a feasibility study of alternate locations for the wastewater treatment facility, alternate treatment methodologies, and alternate receiving environments for the discharge. Is this feasibility study currently in the process of being formulated?
Andrew.
We have obviously an operations plan, a plan to make sure that we meet the requirements of our operational certificate, and a liquid waste management plan that we will update. We are working through that. Obviously, we take the requirements of the ministry to what it has to be done, and we will make sure that we have everything that's required complete.
Thank you.
And that would go then for 2.18 stormwater management plan, which is to be submitted by no later than December 31st, 2028. There's a little more timeline on that, but that's under construction or formulation as we speak, or consideration at least.
Andrew.
Madam Mayor, the Director of Infrastructure has been working diligently to make sure that we achieve what is required in our operating permit and everything. So I have full confidence in the director to fulfill what is required. He's going through the process right now. We have staff on board that can start to support to get all these things that are required done. And we continue to work towards that.
And so the ministry right now, the regulator, is satisfied the city's making best effort despite some of this stuff being 2 or 3 or 4 years out of compliance. And we've got at the last report, I believe I wrote on the back here, we had 4 managers who attended the inspection. Those 4 managers total over $500,000 of salary a year. And there's QP staff and other, and we're out of compliance here for quite a long time. So I'm just, I mean, I sound, I guess, a little bit aggressive, but it's a little bit frustrating to watch this. We didn't get away with this in the private sector, I can tell you that.
Yeah, Roland, I hear your concern and certainly don't think it's aggressive. I think these are good questions. I think we're not necessarily well positioned to answer those questions in great detail tonight.
Fair enough.
And, you know, so you reading them is still valuable. I think Andrew's answering what he can, and we're taking away the rest to get more detailed answers back to you. But we take no issue at all with you asking these questions. They're fair questions. And I think details that obviously will come to council and report as well, but that we're happy to make available to everyone in the public where we're currently at. Andrew, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, and I just want to continue on. We've had a lot of turnover throughout this project in that department. You know, I have a lot of respect for the director of infrastructure and how he's handling and methodically trying to make sure that we are compliant. It takes a lot of effort. You know, I understand the frustration because this is not a position that we'd want to be in, of course, but we're trying to make sure that we go through it methodically to make sure that we are in compliance. And that is, you know, the charge of council and the charge of the CAO to the director of infrastructure. And we'll make sure that we achieve that compliance. We are continuing to work with the ministry all the way through, communicating all the time to make sure that we achieve some of the administrative side of our non-compliance, but also making sure that we meet all the compliance for discharge and everything else. And then the plans and processes. It's been a long project from the start of it, probably going back to 2013.
Earlier than that.
Earlier than that, but it was a lot of effort, and it just showed the need to make sure that we have the right resources. And you talk about the amount of staff, it takes a lot of effort and attention to these capital projects, especially when you know, lessons learned. We're not doing that anymore. We're putting resources where they need to be to make sure we meet compliance. So I hope that provides a little bit more comfort, but we're trying to make sure that we meet the regulatory requirements.
Okay, so then that ties into the final, which is a report that according to the certificate is due in 15 days on March 31st, 2026. And that's a report on the progress towards the elimination of combined sewer overflows. And that's to be updated every 5 years. There's lots of talk about master plans, but I've been at this chamber 2 or 3 or 4 years ago talking about CSOs and the annual cost of asset contribution and annual cost of ownership. And we were quite a ways out of the ballpark, which led to accelerated sewer and water fee increases, which I support if it's going to water and sewer. So with respect to this overflow and infiltration requirement report, it's the certificate. I can read the certificate. It says March 31st, 2026, this report is due. It's another compliance piece. Is that report ready to go, or maybe we don't know that either tonight, I guess.
Andrew, are you able to comment on that specific report?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I won't comment on that right now because I don't have the information
Okay.
in front of me. So what I will do is I'm sure that the director and I will talk about where we are and the questions that you posed, and we'll bring those back. And of course, we'll share that with council, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so could that come back to a public meeting? Because as
absolutely, Roland.
you know, over the years, Mr. Anderson and others have said it, that it's fine if we ask a question here, but if you get back to me privately, the public doesn't get the answers. So I'd appreciate if it did come back and it's just better for everybody.
This issue, of course, has come to council publicly multiple times, so it would be fitting for this information to come back to council. I will just add on the combined sewer overflows piece, as you will know, this has been a big focus for council over the last several years, is actually separating storm and sewer. And the Argyle Street project that was spoken about earlier this evening by Randy is driven by.
I didn't hear that because there was no sound.
Okay, that's right. Well, Randy got up and said, why are you doing this
Okay.
Argyle first to third project? But that project is being driven by separating storm and sewer to meet our combined sewer overflow obligations to the province. We know that that is the most, I don't know enough about it to say, but that's where the greatest source of the combined sewer overflows are, is on that corridor. And so that's why that project has been chosen. It's been in the works, obviously, for a few years. We put our tender out, and we're moving forward with a contract on it, and that is moving forward. So we, reporting aside, we are well aware of our obligations to the province, and we are tackling multiple projects right now that are to meet those obligations going forward and long term.
So we've had these conversations before here, but the clock doesn't stop ticking on the aged assets, and it was identified 10 years ago at the Econics report, which their baseline was actually 2012. So actually it is 14 years ago. And we had over 40,000 meters of pipe that was 1950 and older. So they're quietly waiting underneath the streets I didn't hear the discussion that Mr. Fraser had, but we mentioned Argyle, so I'll just grab this opportunity. And I've expressed this, I think, to some of you on personal discussions, is that it's the expanded scope on Argyle that I disagree with, that the water and sewer fees, and I support council and the annual increases, and you were on the council, and Councilor McCleeman was pretty angry about how the accelerated rate of increases. And I appreciate there's a lot of work that has to be done and the road's going to be disturbed and then the road gets repaired, but we're actually redesigning the road. And we're dipping, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, but we're expanding the scope beyond what really needs to be done there, and we're going to fund it with water and sewer. And I think that money belongs in water and sewer because it's on our utility bills. A consultant told us 10 years ago that we needed to go down this road to increase those fees so we could be addressing all the CSO and stuff.
Absolutely.
But anyway, that's all for tonight. I appreciate your time.
No, absolutely.
Thank you.
We're not funding the whole thing from water and sewer, and the pipes are.
No,
not
I know you're not doing the whole thing, but it's
No, yeah.
expanded scope.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The pipes are not waiting in the ground, unknowingly waiting to break. We are tackling significantly more infrastructure projects right now than we have in recent years. And that was actually Randy's comment earlier. I
Okay.
took it at least to understand that we were maybe doing too much, was how it kind of came off, although I think it's probably not word for word. But we are doing a massive number of projects right now. These are urgent projects, and that we are well aware that there will be more urgent projects that come up. So we are trying to not put things off. We are moving projects along, and some extremely critical ones that are underway, out for tender, and in process right now. So
Yeah, perfect. Let's get a whole bunch more of it done next year then. Thank you.
thank you, Roland. Any other comments or questions from members of the public? Okay, would somebody like to move adjournment? Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Dame. On the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Meeting adjourned.